Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something truly unpleasant. You're going to become a pirate. And no, not the fun kind with eyeliner and a witty British accent. This is the historically accurate version, and you probably won't survive this. Actually, scratch that. You definitely won't survive this. But before we turn your life into one long damp mistake, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, I don't want pity subs. Also, I'm curious. Where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air hits you first. Thick with salt, smoke and human funk, it greets you like a slap in the face as you climb the gangplank. The ship groans under your feet, an old wooden beast with sails like shredded laundry and ropes that creak in protest with every movement. It's not even sailing yet, just bobbing in the harbour like it's already seasick. You try not to make eye contact with the other crew, who range from terrifying to worse. Most are missing teeth, fingers, or just basic hygiene. A few glance your way with dead eyes. One guy spits something black and oily on the deck right in front of you. Charming. Your new captain, a man whose name you don't catch because he only shouts in riddles, waves a half-empty bottle and yells for the crew to shove off. And just like that, you're sailing. No training, no orientation, just a swift kick into maritime chaos. You lurch forward as the ship catches wind, nearly knocking over a barrel of what smells like pickled fish and mouldy socks. A nearby crewmate hands you a mop, says, "Clean or die," and wanders off, possibly to throw up over the side. You begin scrubbing, mostly because dying on day one would be embarrassing. Below deck, things get worse. You're assigned a bunk, which is generous because it's actually a stained hammock, slung between two beams over a slimy puddle. The stench is overwhelming, part sweat, part bilge water, and something that might once have been cabbage. Rats skitter in the shadows, eyeing you like you're just another piece of meat in their pantry. One of them casually gnaws on someone's boot while a cockroach the size of your thumb climbs up a support beam and disappears into the darkness. You realise this will be your home indefinitely. There's no privacy. The hammocks are packed shoulder to shoulder, and snoring becomes a kind of sea shanty from hell. Someone's foot dangles inches from your face. Someone else is definitely talking in their sleep, whispering about gold and blood and something called the eel god. You try to ignore it. The ship rocks constantly, and soon your stomach starts to rebel. You stumble up the stairs just in time to vomit over the rail. Welcome to your first dose of seasickness. It won't be your last. One of the crew tells you it gets better after the first week. He's missing part of his nose and smells like rum-soaked regret. You try to be optimistic. Maybe it does get better. Maybe once you learn the ropes, literally, you'll find your rhythm. But every time you try to help with the sails or the rigging, someone yells at you in a mix of pirate slang and colourful threats. You nod, pretending to understand, and hope you're not about to be keel-hauled for stepping on the wrong rope. Meals are served twice a day, if you can call them that. The greasy-haired cook slops something into a wooden bowl and shoves it toward you. You don't ask what it is, you eat it. It's salty, chewy, and vaguely warm. Your stomach makes an ominous noise in response. You don't finish it, but a rat does. At this point, you're just trying not to die of dysentery or despair. Every day begins with shouting, swabbing, and scraping barnacles off the hull. Your hands blister and crack from the salt and the rope. Sunburn peels your skin in long, gross ribbons. Someone hands you a rusty dagger and says it's for just in case. You don't ask for details. You start sleeping with it tucked into your waistband like some pathetic attempt at safety. You do manage to learn a few names. There's Peg-Eye Lou, who has both eyes but insists on the nickname. There's Gristle, who might be a teenager or just very, very weathered. And there's Maggot, who says he used to be a baker before he snapped. No one elaborates. You don't press. Historically speaking, most pirates weren't the dashing rogues of legend. They were desperate, broke, and often former sailors who'd been abused by their navy or merchant ship captains. Pirate life was often the only option worse than starving on land. Most didn't live long enough to grow old. You wonder how long you'll last. At night, the sea stretches out like black glass, and the stars blink coldly overhead. It should be peaceful, romantic even. But all you can think about is how fragile this splintery ship really is. You're surrounded by a liquid grave in every direction, and there's nowhere to go if things go bad. No escape pod, no lifeboat luxury, just a salty wooden coffin bobbing in the dark. There's an old map tacked up in the galley, probably fake, but the captain waves it around like gospel. X marks a spot somewhere, but for now it's just endless blue. You lie in your hammock swaying gently, trying to forget that everything hurts and everyone smells like fish and fear. Something drips on your forehead. You hope it's water. Oh, and a fun fact to end on. Some pirates used to decorate their ships with human skulls to intimidate enemies. So next time someone says pirates were cool, just remember, they were also interior decorators of the macabre. The first time someone mentions the pirate code, you expect something kind of official. Maybe a scroll, or at least a list nailed to a post like in the movies. Instead, Gristle slaps the back of your head and says, Rule 1, don't be a stupid lump. That's it. No ceremony, no parchment. Just a greasy teenager giving you life advice while cleaning his nails with a fork. Later, Peg-Eye Lou sits next to you during a rare break and mutters, There ain't no code, not really. Every ship makes up its own, he laughs, showing off teeth that look like broken seashells. Some captains say it's democratic, some say it's a dictatorship. Either way, you follow the rules or you're chum. Turns out your particular captain, let's call him Captain Thorn, mostly because his full name is unintelligible growling, runs a tight but unpredictable ship. The rules are scrawled in red ink on a plank in the galley, right between a squashed bug and a gravy stain. They include important guidelines like no stealing from your mates, always share the rum, and if you fart below deck, own up to it. You assume the last one was added after an unfortunate incident, and judging by the crew's haunted expressions, it was not a minor event. But these rules aren't just for laughs. Breaking them has consequences, serious ones. One morning, the ship's bell clangs in a way that means everyone up or get kicked. You stumble to the deck with the rest of the bleary-eyed crew where 2 men are tied to the mainmast. Captain Thorn stands in front of them, cradling his monkey, which is wearing a tiny vest for some reason. The captain roars, One stole tobacco, one cheated at dice. What do you reckon we do? The monkey claps. The crew cheers. Someone yells, Keel haul! You have no idea what that means, but everyone seems excited about it. Turns out keel hauling is not fun. The accused are tied with ropes and dragged under the ship from one side to the other. You get to watch. It's not quick. The barnacles on the hull do most of the damage, shredding skin like cheese graters. One man survives, the other doesn't. You try not to throw up again. This time you almost succeed. So yeah, the pirate code isn't some honourable brotherhood thing. It's more like arbitrary doom based on the captain's mood and how much rum is left. Still, there are certain things everyone agrees on. For example, don't steal from the communal stash, always fight back if challenged, and never, and this is repeated often, never touch the parrot. It's not the captain's parrot, it's Maggot's. Its name is Stabsy, and it only says curse words in 5 languages. The bird is terrifying. One guy reached out to pet it once, and now he's called Two-Finger Joe. You haven't looked too closely, but you assume the nickname is anatomically accurate. Every night, the crew takes turns on watch. If it's your shift and you fall asleep, that's another rule broken, and not a minor one. According to Gristle, the last guy who dozed off got marooned on a sandbar with nothing but a spoon and a jug of brine. You ask if that's true, he just says, why else would we have the spoon rule? You start noticing the double standard too. The captain gets away with everything. He drinks half the rum, forgets his own rules, and once ordered the crew to sail in a circle because he dreamed a seagull told him the treasure was behind them. No one argued. He wanted to. But arguing with a man who names his cutlass Susan and regularly duels his own shadow feels ill-advised. Historically, there actually were pirate codes. Some famous pirates like Bartholomew Roberts and Captain Kidd had detailed rules, how loot would be divided, how disputes were settled, even compensation if you lost a limb. Believe it or not, pirates were among the earliest adopters of workers' comp. Lose a leg? That might earn you 600 pieces of 8, but your ship doesn't follow that kind of order. Here, if you lose a leg, the crew just bets on whether you'll learn to hop in a straight line. There's one rule everyone seems deeply committed to, though. No singing after dark. You're not sure why. The one time someone broke it, humming a quiet tune while tying up sails, the crew went dead silent. Then Thorn came up from below deck and stared at the offender until the poor guy threw himself overboard. He was fine. They fished him out after an hour, but no one's sung since, not even Stabsy, and Stabsy sings everything. There's also the matter of duels. You thought sword fights were rare, dramatic things, but on this ship they happen almost daily, and for reasons that range from you stole my socks to I don't like your face. Sometimes it's knives, sometimes fists. Once, it was pickled fish. You don't ask. You're just grateful you haven't been challenged yet. You keep your head down and pretend to be dumb. It's not hard. Then comes your first pirate vote. The ship spots another vessel in the distance. Captain Thorne demands a vote. Chase or not? Everyone shouts over each other. Rum is spilled. Someone threatens to bite someone else's nose. Eventually, the vote is in favour of the chase. The ship changes course. You ask Gristle what happens if we'd voted no. He grins. Then we'd vote again until it's yes. You realise very quickly that democracy at sea is a lot like that group project in school where one guy does nothing and still insists on picking the PowerPoint theme. Except here, that guy also has a knife. Quirky side note, in some pirate crews, musicians were excused from fighting. They were considered sacred because morale mattered. So if you'd had the foresight to bring a violin, you might have dodged all this. Instead, you brought absolutely nothing. You didn't even pack a spare shirt. As night falls, you lie back in your hammock, listening to the creak of the ship and the not-so-gentle sounds of someone snoring like a dying walrus. You try to remember the rules. Don't steal. Don't duel unless you're sure you'll win. Don't pet the parrot, don't sing. And whatever you do, don't fart below deck without taking responsibility. Apparently that one's sacred. Your eyes close. You sleep lightly. One ear open, one hand on your rusty dagger. Because out here, the code is real, but so is the danger. And the code changes whenever someone with a louder voice says so. You wake up to something wet hitting your face. At first you hope it's rain leaking through the deck above. That would be the dream scenario. But as your eyes flick open, you realise it's a droplet of something warmer and far less comforting. Maybe sweat, maybe condensation, maybe worse, dripping steadily from the beam overhead. Welcome back to your luxurious pirate bunk, which to be fair is just a suspended strip of filthy canvas with ropes fraying faster than your nerves. You shift your weight trying not to rock the hammock too violently, because the guy next to you, he goes by Pisspot, snores with a rhythm so violent it sounds like he's gargling rocks. And the last time someone accidentally woke him, they got a punch to the kidney and a new nickname, Whimper. You stretch, barely able to move without elbowing someone else. The ship groans and creaks all around you, the boards flexing like they're made of damp cardboard. It's humid, as usual, and the air is thick with body odour, mildew and that sour rot that clings to everything. You sit up, your spine protesting from another night of swinging sleep, and your feet land in a shallow puddle that may or may not be seawater. It's not clear if you're supposed to wear shoes down here. Most pirates don't. But now you get why. Shoes just soak up the gross and trap it. You're not sure what day it is. No one really keeps track. There's no calendar, no bells to mark the hours, just sun, moon, stomach growls, and the occasional cannon fire. You hear movement above deck, and a voice bellows for all hands. You groan, tie your hair back with a greasy scrap of cloth and climb the ladder, stepping over a rat the size of a small cat gnawing on what appears to be a toe. Back on deck, the world is blinding. The sun reflects off the ocean like a mirror wielded by a vengeful god. Your eyes water, and your skin immediately begins to bake. The air smells only marginally better up here. Fish guts, sweat, and wet rope. But at least it moves. A stiff breeze ruffles the sails and dries the sweat sticking your shirt to your spine. You squint toward the horizon, expecting something dramatic. But no, just another day of endless blue and chores. Speaking of which, today's glorious task, swabbing the deck. Again. You're handed a mop with more splinters than bristles, and pointed toward a crusted corner near the captain's cabin. You begin scrubbing, your back aching, your arms already sore, and a splatter of dried something cracking beneath your efforts. It's hard to tell if it's blood, vomit, or just seawater mixed with despair. As you work, you glance at where the crew sleeps above deck. The lucky ones who can't handle the rat pit below. They're curled under thin blankets, sunburned and twitching, flies landing on open mouths. One guy mutters in his sleep about gold teeth and chickens. Another sleeps with one eye half open. You keep mopping. No one offers to help. That's not how this works. You notice now that most of the ship is in some state of decay. The railings are soft with rot. The sails are patched with stolen flags and old shirts. The ropes creak ominously with every shift in the wind. The ship is a floating graveyard held together by tar, spit and optimism. And below deck, that's where things get really grim. You sneak back down after your shift, hoping to scavenge a few minutes of rest before the next chore. As you duck into the darkness, You're greeted by the usual bouquet of human suffering. There's mould on the walls, actual green fuzz growing from the boards, and something moving in the shadows that's either a cat or a raccoon that got stuck aboard and became something else. No one asks questions. You crawl back into your hammock, but not before checking it for unwanted guests. You've heard stories, fleas, lice, worse. The guy across from you, named Spindle, hasn't bathed in months, and now has a visible colony of something living in his hair. When you asked him once why he didn't just wash, he shrugged and said, "Salt kills the soul." You didn't press. And bathing, by the way? Not a thing. The idea of a warm bath is laughable. At best, you might get splashed during a storm or get a wave over the side while hanging laundry. Some of the crew scrub with sand and seawater, which does little except exfoliate your misery. You've started to forget what clean skin feels like. Your shirt sticks to your back like a second, increasingly suspicious layer of flesh. But the worst part, the truly soul-sucking horror, is the sleep. You never get enough, and when you do, it's the kind that leaves you more tired. Between the snoring, the rocking, the endless creaks and thumps and the nightmares, which usually involve drowning, burning or accidentally kissing the parrot, you wake up feeling like you've been trampled by hooves. Historically, pirate ships were cramped nightmares. A typical sloop or brigantine might have 30 to 50 men all living in the same space, often sleeping in shifts due to the lack of room. And you're one of those unlucky dozens. You sleep where you can, with what you have, and if someone claims your hammock while you're working, tough luck. The only currency stronger than gold on this ship is a spot that doesn't smell like fermented feet. Fun fringe fact for your slowly deteriorating sanity. Some pirates believed keeping a pig on board was good luck. Not for eating, just for vibes. Sadly, your ship had one. It fell overboard on day 2. The captain declared this a bad omen, and ever since then morale has been, let's say, subterranean. There's a quiet sort of madness that settles over the crew on long stretches at sea. Everyone starts to talk to themselves, to the sea, to the sky. People forget how long it's been since they last stood on land. Some begin to forget land ever existed. You catch a guy named Soupbones staring into the ocean, whispering apologies. You ask who he's talking to. He just says, "She knows," and walks off. There's also the sleepwalkers. At least 2 crew members are known to roam at night, muttering pirate lullabies and bumping into things. One of them tried to climb the mast barefoot in his underwear, shouting something about the pearl beneath the clouds. You're not even surprised anymore, it's just part of the atmosphere. You lie awake in your hammock later that night, staring into the darkness, listening to the slow, heavy breathing of 50 exhausted men. The air is so thick with heat and stink it feels like you're inhaling soup. You feel something tickle your foot. You don't look, you don't move. It's easier that way. This is pirate life. You sleep in filth, surrounded by unstable men and unstable structures, and you wake each day hoping the worst thing you smell is still just your shirt. You wake up hungry. Not the kind of hunger where your stomach grumbles politely asking for a snack. No. This is the gnawing, painful, stomach-shrinking kind of hunger that makes you wonder if eating a leather boot might be a viable option. You sit up in your hammock, your limbs stiff and your back sore, and you already know what's coming. Mealtime on a pirate ship isn't something to look forward to. It's more like rolling dice with your digestive system. There's a line near the galley, not an orderly line, mind you, more of a grim, lurching crowd of unwashed men holding bowls and staring blankly ahead like prisoners of war. The ship's cook is a man named Belly, mostly because that's where he keeps most of his body mass. Belly wears no shirt, no shoes, and definitely no sense of shame. His apron is always stained, and you're pretty sure that stain hasn't changed shape since you got here. He stands over a steaming pot that smells faintly of meat and strongly of wet burlap. He ladles out a chunky grey slop and drops it into your bowl with a squelch. You take your portion to a crate by the railing and sit down. You stare at it. The texture is somewhere between mashed turnips and regret. The smell is worse up close, musty, sour and faintly metallic. You poke it with your spoon and find a wriggling surprise, a maggot, or possibly a worm. You blink at it. It blinks back. No one else seems bothered. In fact, most of the crew is already eating. One man even stirs his meal to find more bugs, muttering, "Extra protein." You try not to gag as you take a bite. It tastes like salt, rot, and something bitter. Your teeth crunch down on something unidentifiable, and for a second you genuinely wonder if you've chipped a molar. This is what passes for dinner and lunch and breakfast. The menu doesn't change. It's always some combination of hardtack, salted meat and belly-boiled despair stew. Ah yes, hardtack. If you've never heard of it, think of a biscuit made by someone who hates you. It's flour and water baked until it's harder than the emotional core of the captain. You have to break it with a rock, or your fists, or someone else's fists. Then you soak it in stew until it's just barely edible. Even then, it still tastes like plaster mixed with sadness, and it always has weevils. Tiny, wriggling bugs that live inside the biscuit like it's an Airbnb. At first you try to pick them out. After a while, you just eat around them. After that, you stop noticing. One guy eats them on purpose. He calls it crunchy garnish. As for the meat, salted beef or pork, packed into barrels and preserved in brine. You'd think salt would keep it fresh. It doesn't. It just gives the rot a new flavour. Sometimes it's slimy, sometimes it's dry, sometimes it's green. But it's meat, and you need protein, so you eat it. You chew slowly, trying not to think about what animal it might have been, or how long it's been dead. Some pirates say you can tell how old the meat is by counting the rings of mould, like a tree but with more vomiting. There are no fruits, no vegetables, no vitamins, no joy. The only thing you have plenty of is rum, and even that is rationed. It's usually watered down, which is honestly a blessing because if you drank it straight, you'd probably go blind. The crew calls it grog, a mix of rum, water, and sometimes citrus or spices. Though your ship rarely bothers with flavour, you drink it because it's safer than the water, which is stored in barrels that now grow their own ecosystems. You took one sip your first week and immediately saw God. She was not impressed. Historically, food on pirate ships was barely better than starvation. Pirates had to eat whatever they could steal, store, or preserve. They couldn't afford to be picky, and they didn't have refrigeration. Salt was the only thing keeping their meat from turning into soup, and even then, it was a losing battle. They might raid a merchant ship and find sacks of grain, dried beans or dried fish. But most of the time, they lived on mouldy bread and old meat while praying not to get food poisoning during a storm. And yes, food poisoning is frequent. There's no calling out sick. If you get the runs, you deal with it at sea, over the rail if you're lucky, in your hammock if you're not. One man is already on deck duty because he soiled himself during a fight. No one will go near his hammock, which now has its own name, the Funk Nest. Quirky side note, pirates sometimes caught and ate sea turtles. Not because they were cruel, but because turtles were easy to catch, slow, and their meat lasted for days. Some ships even stacked them upside down in the hold like living meat lockers. Morally questionable, but highly practical. You haven't seen any turtles yet. Just some very disappointed seagulls and one jellyfish that floated by and looked more put together than you. You finish your meal? Barely. You're not full, but you're less empty, and that's good enough. You rinse your bowl in a bucket of grey water that might once have been clean, then hang it on a hook near the galley. Belly gives you a grin as you pass. His teeth are wrong. Just wrong. You don't linger. Later the cook rings the snack bell. You didn't even know there was such a thing. Turns out it just means he found something weird in the stores and decided it's edible. This time it's mouldy cheese. Someone says it smells like old shoes. Someone else says, I miss old shoes. You try a bite. It tastes like betrayal. You throw the rest overboard and watch a fish rise up, sniff it, and swim away in disgust. One of the older pirates named Squib pulls you aside later that evening. He's missing an ear and smells like clams, but he talks to you like a human being, which is rare. You know, he says, we once stole a merchant ship with barrels of olives and wine. Spent 3 weeks drunk and regular. No scurvy, no belly aches. Best weeks of my life. Haven't pooped right since. He pats you on the shoulder and walks off, whistling a tune that might be a hymn or a threat. You stare at the horizon, wondering if you'll ever eat something that doesn't squirm or crunch in your mouth. Your stomach growls. You don't know if it's from hunger or trauma. At night, you dream of food, real food. Bread that's soft, cheese that doesn't fight back, water that doesn't smell like an old bucket. But when you wake up, you're still here, and belly's already stirring the pot. You start to notice your teeth feel weird. Not just sore or dirty, weird. One of them is loose, just a little, like it's considering quitting but hasn't worked up the courage yet. Your gums bleed when you gnaw on hardtack, which to be fair could shred sheet metal. But lately even soft bites, if anything on this ship could be called soft, feel like chewing glass. You don't say anything, because that's how things go here. The moment you speak up about being sick, you're marked, a liability, dead weight. Better to keep quiet and pretend it's all fine while your body quietly falls apart. And fall apart it does. Your gums swell. Your joints ache like you're 80 years old. Bruises appear out of nowhere. Big, angry patches of purple and green blooming on your arms and legs like mould on stale bread. One morning you wake up and a chunk of your hair is stuck to your pillow. That's when you know something's wrong. Really wrong. Welcome to the glamorous world of scurvy. The pirate's slow-motion nightmare. Caused by a lack of vitamin C, it sneaks up on you, quietly unravelling your body one symptom at a time. First, the fatigue, then the bleeding, then the teeth. Then, if you're lucky, a swift end from infection. If you're not lucky, your skin splits, your gums rot, and you die screaming on a hammock soaked in your own fluids. You start paying attention to the rest of the crew. You're not the only one. Gristle's missing half his upper gums. Squib limps more than he used to, and not in the charming peg-leg kind of way. Even the captain has started coughing up something that should not be inside a human body. No one says scurvy aloud. It's like naming a ghost, but it's there, always there. The cook's solution? Rum, that's it. Maybe with a pinch of pepper or some kind of leaf he found growing between the floorboards. It doesn't help, of course. You still feel like a sack of wet rope, and now you're also mildly drunk all the time, which, to be fair, makes everything a little more tolerable. Historically, scurvy killed more sailors than storms or battles combined. On long voyages, it was common for over half the crew to die from it. Back then, nobody really understood vitamins. Some ships got lucky and carried pickled vegetables or citrus if they could afford it, or if they stole it. But most pirate vessels, nothing. Just salted meat, dry bread, and despair. The British Navy eventually figured out that lemons and limes could prevent scurvy, which is why sailors got the nickname limeys. Pirates, meanwhile, stuck to rum and died younger than most reality TV contestants. You think about limes a lot now, like way too much. You daydream about biting into one. Tart, juicy, cold. Your body craves it. You trade your hammock for a single orange. You trade Gristle's hammock for a lemon and you like Gristle, sort of. One night a storm rolls in. It starts as a drizzle, then turns into a full-blown squall, tossing the ship like a cork in a bathtub. The crew scrambles, tying sails, bailing water, and swearing at the sky. You hold on to the rigging for dear life, soaked to the bone and praying the lightning doesn't notice you. But when the storm finally passes, the rain leaves behind something magical. A barrel floating in the water. It's fished out with ropes and cracked open. Inside, spoiled wine, but also, miracle of miracles, a few shriveled citrus fruits. Oranges. Real oranges. Most are mush. But one is edible. The crew gathers around like it's a holy relic. You think they're going to divide it, share it, like a family. Nope. The captain eats it whole, peel and all, while maintaining eye contact with the rest of you. Then he wipes his mouth and says, "Tasted awful." You consider mutiny for the first time. After that, the sickness worsens. You see Maggot collapse one morning, just drops mid-step like someone pulled the plug. He wakes up with a bloody mouth and empty eyes. The parrot squawks but doesn't even fly to him. Even Stabsy's scared now. Quirky fact, some pirates try to treat scurvy by drinking urine, not someone else's, their own. Don't ask. Just know that if someone starts talking about recycling the soul, you might want to avoid sharing a hammock. The smell on the ship becomes unbearable. You thought it was bad before. Now it's a stew of open wounds, bad breath, leaking sores, and sweat. You hold your breath when walking below deck, which only helps until you pass out. At least you won't remember the odour. There's a point where the pain becomes background noise. You get used to bleeding when you brush your teeth with a rag. Used to the way your gums swell like someone shoved cotton under your lips. Used to the nightly fever dreams where your own body turns against you in slow motion. You begin to forget what it felt like to be healthy. You accept the rot as your new normal. Then one morning something shifts. You see land. It's just a speck on the horizon, but it's real. The crew loses it. People start singing, crying, laughing hysterically. Someone dances a jig and immediately throws out their back. The captain declares, "Fruit for everyone," before immediately passing out from what looks like a mix of dehydration and internal bleeding. Honestly, it's one of his better moments. You pull into the harbour of some uncharted port. It's barely more than a beach and a few huts, but the trees are heavy with citrus, oranges, lemons, limes. You stagger off the boat with the rest of the crew, grab a fruit and bite into it so hard your jaw cramps. Juice runs down your chin, stinging your split lips, and for a moment, just a moment, you feel alive again. The crew gorges. No one fights. No one hoards. It's a rare, silent peace. Everyone just sits, chewing slowly, letting their bodies remember what real food is supposed to taste like. Of course, this won't last. The fruit will run out. The ship will leave. Scurvy will come back. But for now, you savour every bite like it's the last good thing you'll ever have, because it probably is. The wind starts howling before dawn, not the playful breeze through your hair type of wind, but the angry kind that sounds like it wants to peel the sails off and carry your whole floating misery box into the afterlife. You're jolted awake by the sudden lurch of the ship, your hammock swinging violently like it's trying to throw you across the hold. You try to sit up, but gravity's confused and everything, including your stomach, feels upside down. You scramble above deck, slipping on the damp steps, heart pounding and eyes squinting against the cold rain, already slashing sideways. The sky is a bruised grey, the kind of sky that promises nothing good. The waves are taller than the ship now, lifting it and dropping it with stomach-twisting rhythm. It feels like being in a fight with a drunk giant who keeps forgetting what round it is. The crew's already shouting, slipping and sliding across the slick boards, grabbing ropes, tying knots, and swearing at the wind. You're tossed a length of rope and told to lash something down. No context, just a general demand for action. You panic lash a barrel to the mast, which, in hindsight, makes no sense, but nobody stops you. The rain stings your skin like icy needles, and the ocean heaves so violently it feels like the ship could snap in half. You grip the railing just in time to avoid being flung overboard, and realise, yep, you're terrified. Historically, pirates didn't have ships built for storms. They used smaller, faster vessels like sloops and schooners, great for quick escapes and shallow waters, but basically floating coffins in heavy seas. Unlike Navy ships, pirates didn't have massive crews of trained sailors or backup vessels. If your ship went down in a storm, that was it. Game over. No rescue, no life jackets, just cold water, flailing limbs, and maybe a shark or 10. Speaking of sharks, one of the crew, Fingers, who now only has 2 of them, yells that the hold is flooding. He doesn't wait for help, just disappears below deck with a bucket and a manic grin. You hear sloshing and coughing and not much else. Another wave hits, and the entire deck tilts to what feels like a 45-degree angle. You cling to the rigging, slipping on algae-covered wood, and in that moment, the sheer hate the ocean has for your existence becomes very clear. The ship creaks like it's complaining. The sails, half furled, whip violently, and 2 men are already halfway up the rigging trying to secure them. You're not trained to do that. You don't even know how knots work properly. But someone screams for you to help, and before you can say absolutely not, you're halfway up the ropes, hands burning, eyes stinging, and stomach churning. Up here you can see it all, the black chop of the sea, the flash of lightning that lights up the horizon like a warning flare, and the growing panic below. The sails are fighting against you like they're possessed. You grip a rope with every muscle in your body screaming and tie a knot that may or may not hold. Then a gust hits, hard. You nearly lose your grip. Below you, someone falls from the rigging with a sickening thud. No one has time to help. The storm doesn't let up. For hours, the ship is tossed like a toy. You alternate between bailing water, tightening ropes, and vomiting over the side. Your arms feel like jelly. Your legs wobble with every step. You can't hear anything except wind, waves, and the occasional command that sounds more like a death threat than instruction. Then, as suddenly as it started, the storm begins to die. The rain softens, the wind slackens. The sea stops trying to kill you and settles into a slow, ominous roll. You're soaked to the bone, shivering, and bruised in places you didn't know could bruise. You drop to the deck, exhausted, soaked, and still vaguely convinced you're going to die. You're not the only one. Several crew members are injured. One man's leg is bent the wrong way, another has a long gash across his back. Someone is missing a chunk of ear. No one talks about the body floating near the stern. They fish it out silently, cover it with a tarp, and return to work like it's just another Tuesday. A new sound joins the lapping of the waves, hammering, repair work, damage control. You help patch a splintered railing using wood that looks like it came from a smashed crate of onions. Whatever works. Everything is wet. The sails are shredded. The captain is pacing the deck like a man looking for someone to blame. You avoid his eye. Stabsy, the parrot, is missing half his feathers, and now only squawks in what sounds like Latin. You collapse near the galley, teeth chattering. Gristle hands you a cup of something warm and brown. You ask what it is. He just says, "Not salt water." Good enough. You sip and nearly choke. It's the bitter, overboiled remains of old coffee spiced with what might be fish scales, but it's hot, and that's all you care about. Historically, most pirates didn't survive major storms. Ships capsized, split or smashed against rocks. Navigational tools were limited, and charts were often outdated or just plain wrong. And without any backup ship or harbour nearby, one bad storm could wipe out an entire crew. There's a reason you don't hear about pirates dying peacefully in bed. The ocean doesn't like long goodbyes. As you sit on the deck, wrapping a soaked blanket around your shoulders, you realise that this might not even have been a big storm. Just an average one. A casual little tantrum from the sea. The real monsters, those are still out there. You remember a story one of the older crew members told about a wave so big it blocked out the moon. He called it the Smiler, because it curved like a sneer before crashing down. Everyone laughed at the time. No one's laughing now. Quirky fact. During storms, some pirates tied themselves to the mast to avoid being washed overboard. Romantic, right? Until you realise if the ship sinks, you go with it. Tied up, helpless, and screaming your regrets into a lungful of brine. Night falls. The storm clouds scatter and the stars come out glittering like they've been watching the whole thing mildly amused. The ship creaks and groans, battered but still floating. You lie back against a barrel, sore, soaked, and so tired your bones feel hollow. You close your eyes and listen to the sea, still breathing heavily like a beast waiting for round two. You survived this time. Barely. But the ocean doesn't forget. It'll be back. And next time, it might bring friends. You know the day is going sideways the moment you step in blood before breakfast. It's not a lot. Just a smeared little streak near the mast. But it's fresh. And it's going somewhere. You follow it with your eyes and spot a group of crewmen gathered in a loose huddle, shoulders hunched, heads low. The kind of formation people only make when they're watching something they can't stop but probably should. You edge closer and peer over a pair of greasy shoulders just in time to see two pirates pummeling each other on the deck. One is shirtless and bleeding from the mouth. The other has a hammer in one hand and a look in his eyes that says he's way past the point of logic. No one's stopping them. In fact, there's light cheering. Someone's betting on who'll be the first to lose a tooth. This is your first up-close look at pirate justice, and it's not exactly fair or well-organised. Apparently the shirtless one, called Bandy, was accused of stealing rum from the stores. The other, a barrel-shaped man with 3 teeth and the charming nickname Gut Bucket, claimed he saw him do it. No trial, no discussion, just fists, blood, and an unspoken agreement that whoever wins is probably telling the truth. The fight ends with Bandy on the deck, groaning, his face a mess of swelling bruises. Gut Bucket stands over him, panting like a dog in the sun, and then casually kicks him in the ribs for good measure. The captain eventually emerges from below deck, squints at the scene and says, "Toss the loser in the drink." But you think he's joking. He's not. 2 crewmates haul Bandy up by his arms and drag him to the side of the ship. He doesn't struggle. That's the part that sticks with you. He just accepts it. They throw him overboard with as much emotion as tossing out a bucket of fish guts. He splashes into the sea with a pathetic flail, and someone throws him a barrel top. That's it. That's the mercy. A floating piece of wood and a good luck shouted through laughter. Historically, mutiny wasn't uncommon, but neither was raw, impulsive punishment. Pirates might have had a code, but that didn't mean fairness. The crew vote system only worked when people were in the mood for it. Most of the time, justice meant whatever the captain, or the biggest, loudest guy, decided in that moment. And on this ship, Captain Thorne has one consistent rule. Don't cause problems that make him notice you. You hang back, trying to stay invisible, watching as Bandy kicks at the waves, drifting slowly away. No one's turning the ship around. The sea decides if he lives or not. You whisper a quick goodbye in your head, unsure if it's sympathy or self-preservation. Later that day, during sail repairs, a guy named Knuckles bumps into another man. Just a shoulder brush. Nothing major. But Knuckles turns around, wild-eyed, and screams, "You did that on purpose!" A second later, he's pulled a blade. The other guy stumbles back, hands raised, shouting, "It was an accident!" Doesn't matter. The blade flashes. The crew forms another loose circle. You can't believe it. Again? Twice in one day? No, this isn't rare. This is life. Tempers flare like flint sparks, and boredom makes people reckless. No entertainment, no space. Just hot air, creaky boards, and way too many men stuck together. Duels break out over stolen boots, loud snoring, or someone looking at someone else's coconut the wrong way. You're constantly on edge, waiting for someone to decide your face is annoying today. You've been careful. You keep your head down, work hard, and laugh at all the right jokes, even the one about the guy who mistook a cannonball for a stool. Spoiler, he now walks funny. But you can feel it. Violence is in the air, always just a few bad words away. You clean your dagger every night now, not because it needs it, but because if someone challenges you, the last thing you want is a rusty blade that breaks mid-duel. At dinner, if you can call it that, someone actually brings it up. "This ship's cursed," mutters a sailor named Broom, as he picks weevils out of his hardtack. "Too much fighting. Bad luck." A few heads nod. One guy spits and mutters about bad omens. Stabsy the parrot squawks out, "Kill 'em all!" and everyone freezes for half a second before pretending that's normal. You sleep that night with one eye open, your hand on your knife. It's not paranoia if it's statistically likely. You're not scared of sea monsters or naval ships anymore. No, the real danger is right here, snoring in hammocks next to you, waiting for the wrong look or the wrong word. This ship is a floating powder keg, and you're a spark away from becoming next week's ghost story. There's a kind of cruel logic to it. With no laws, no outside order, pirates had to police themselves, and that rarely ended in hugs. Mutiny was always a possibility. If the crew didn't like the captain, they could vote him out, or stab him quietly and feed him to the fish. But most captains maintained control through fear, charisma, and liberal use of violence. Captain Thorn? He checks all three boxes, especially the violence one. Quirky fact, some pirate ships held equality meetings, where the crew could air grievances. You briefly fantasize about suggesting one. Maybe put up a sign. "Let's talk about our feelings over grog and biscuits." You smile at the thought, then immediately frown because smiling too long might make someone think you're laughing at them, and that's how you lose an ear. The next day, another duel breaks out. You don't even stop working to watch. You just hear the scuffle, the cheers, the final thud. Someone wins. Someone loses. Someone probably bleeds all over the deck you'll be swabbing later. Eventually, you stop asking why they're fighting. It doesn't matter. The reasons are never good, and the outcome is always the same. Someone hurts, someone gets blamed, and the ship rolls on without a pause. At this point, you've accepted that pirate justice isn't justice at all. It's survival. It's dominance. It's random, chaotic, and deeply personal. You make a note to never borrow anything, never touch anyone's belongings, never make eye contact unless absolutely necessary. Keep your mouth shut and your blade close. You're not trying to win fights. You're trying to avoid having one. You hear a splash in the distance. No one looks. Probably just another problem solved. The call to arms comes just before sunrise. That quiet, hazy hour when the sea is calm and your brain is still floating somewhere between sleep and survival. You're jolted awake not by the usual screech of Stabsy or the smell of someone's feet drifting into your hammock, but by the unmistakable roar of Captain Thorn. "Enemy on the horizon! All hands to battle stations!" Your heart drops into your socks. You barely remember where your boots are, let alone what a battle station is. You tumble out of the hammock, dagger clattering to the floor, and scramble up the ladder to the deck while your crewmates shove past you, hollering, half-dressed and already armed with cutlasses and crude firearms. Up top, the air is crisp with panic. The sky's pink and low with clouds, and there, slicing across the horizon, is another ship. Larger, cleaner, with sails that aren't stitched from old trousers and curses. It's flying a flag you don't recognise, but the crew seems to. Judging by the sudden increase in swearing, and the way everyone starts loading the cannons like their lives depend on it, it's safe to say they're not friends. You're handed a cannonball, it's heavier than you expect and warm from the morning sun. You just stand there like an idiot until someone screams in your face to "Load it, fool!" You run to one of the gun ports, where Fingers is already ramming powder into the cannon with an oversized stick. You do your best to help, following his frantic instructions, while the deck beneath your feet shudders with each crashing wave. Cannons are not elegant. They're loud, dirty, and extremely unreliable. Powder gets everywhere, and the metal reeks of smoke and oil. You load the ball, fingers trembling, and stumble back as fingers fires. The cannon jumps like it's trying to run away, and your ears ring so hard the world goes muffled. Somewhere behind you someone shouts, "Reload!" You do it again and again. The other ship is getting closer now. You can see movement on their deck, figures racing, sails adjusting, the gleam of metal in the sun. Then you hear it, the low boom of their cannons. You duck instinctively, but the shot misses, splashing into the sea off your stern. Everyone cheers, even though half the crew is now reeling from the recoil of our own guns. There's no safety, no plan, just chaos. You run ammunition back and forth, help tie off ropes, and occasionally hurl insults at the other ship because someone said it throws off their morale. At one point, Gristle jumps onto a barrel and yells, "Eat barnacles, you soggy cowards!" before slipping and falling face first into a mop bucket. No one helps him. Then the grappling hooks fly. Hooks arc through the air like angry metal spiders, biting into the wood of the enemy ship. The pirates cheer as the vessels are reeled closer, the hulls groaning as they smack together. The real fight is about to begin. Boarding is madness. It's what separates pirates from most other sailors. Pirates don't just shoot and flee, they leap onto enemy decks with wild eyes and rusty blades, swinging from ropes and screaming like they forgot what civilization is. You watch as Peg-Eye Lou swings across the gap like a deranged squirrel, cutlass in hand, landing on the other deck with a roar. You don't want to follow. Every instinct in your body says stay put. But then someone shoves you forward, and your feet leave the deck and you're sailing through the air in the worst zipline experience of your life. You land hard, stumble, and immediately get punched in the face. Welcome to battle. There's no order, no strategy, just swinging, stabbing, slipping, and screaming. You duck low, stabbing wildly at someone's ankle, and they go down hard. You might have saved someone, or killed someone. It's impossible to tell in the madness. Smoke fills the air, thick and sour. Blood splatters your shirt. You're not sure if it's yours. Your arms ache from swinging your blade, your eyes sting from sweat, and someone's on fire. Not like metaphorically, literally on fire. He jumps into a barrel of water and everyone cheers like it's entertainment. Historically, pirate boarding parties were terrifying. Pirates trained for it. They'd weaken a ship with cannon fire, then storm it fast, relying on shock and brutality. Surrender was often immediate. No sane merchant wanted to duel with a bunch of half-mad outlaws with nothing to lose. But not this ship. These guys are holding their own. Too well. That's when you hear the whistle. Sharp, shrill, familiar. The Navy. Not your Navy. Not anyone's Navy, actually. Just a neutral party with real ships, real guns, and zero patience for floating chaos. You glance toward the horizon and see a third ship barreling toward you. Crisp flags flying, crew in uniform and cannons gleaming. Everyone freezes. Well, not everyone. Captain Thorne doesn't freeze. He screams, "Take what you can and run." Suddenly it's all grab and go. Pirates stuff their pockets with whatever they can find. Gold coins, silk, buttons, who knows? You find yourself grabbing a bag of something that feels like flour. Why? Who knows? Instinct. Survival. Loot first, questions later. You scramble back onto your ship as the grapples are cut, the gap widening between the vessels. You hear shouting, the blast of another cannon, and then your ship veers hard, sails snapping as it turns to flee. Behind you, the Navy ship grows larger, not faster, larger. You realise with some horror that it's gaining on you. The crew throws barrels overboard to lighten the load. Someone drops the captain's chair. You toss your bag of flour because suddenly you realise no biscuit is worth dying for. The first shot from the Navy ship is a warning. It lands in the water close enough to spray the deck. The second hits your aft sail. Wood splinters fly. You drop to the floor and cover your head. More shots follow. The ship shakes with each one, but by some miracle, or sheer chaos, you make it to open water. They don't pursue, not far anyway. Probably too busy dealing with the poor souls still stuck on the ship you boarded. Or maybe they're just letting you run because they know your ship can't outrun its own bad luck forever. Quirky fact. Some pirates used fireworks and smoke bombs during raids. Anything to disorient their enemies. Your crew once tried it with powdered sugar. It did not work. Hours later, the adrenaline fades, and the bruises bloom. You lie on the deck, breathing hard, body sore. You survived your first naval skirmish. You didn't die. You didn't fall overboard. You didn't get stabbed in the spine. But somehow, you don't feel triumphant. just tired, and aware that next time you might not be so lucky. You spend most of the next day picking someone else's blood out from under your fingernails. Not yours, you're pretty sure. Though honestly, the line between mine and formerly his has been getting blurry lately. The fight from yesterday still echoes in your bones. Every joint aches, your arms feel like overcooked noodles, and you've got a headache lodged somewhere behind your left eye that refuses to move out. But the worst part, after all that chaos, after all that shouting and swinging and near-death drama, you got absolutely nothing. No gold, no silver, not even a decent pair of boots. What did you almost die for? Mouldy silk. You heard the groans even before the crates were opened. The cargo hold of that ship you boarded was packed with bales of damp, moth-eaten silk, stacks of trade ledgers, and a few sacks of half-rotten spices that now make the ship smell like a haunted bakery. No coins, no jewels, just slightly decorative mildew, and the heartbreaking sound of Captain Thorne weeping into a ledger that records tax shipments from 1723. Peg-Eye Lou tried to rally the mood by wearing the silk as a cape. That lasted 10 minutes until it tore down the middle like wet tissue. Everyone's silent now, sitting with the stink of failure, watching as a pile of useless fabric flaps in the wind like a flag of disappointment. You wander into the galley and find Belly scraping the last of a rat stew into a pot. The smell doesn't even bother you anymore. You sit at the bench slumping forward and ask the question on everyone's mind. Was that worth it? He shrugs. I once killed a man for a can of pickled beets. So yeah, maybe. You stare at the wall for a while after that. At this point, you're convinced that half the pirate lifestyle is just putting up with crushing disappointment while pretending it's part of the plan. Historically, pirates didn't always hit the jackpot. In fact, they rarely did. Most ships they raided were merchant vessels filled with boring necessities: cloth, spices, lumber, maybe tobacco. Valuable, sure, but not the shiny treasure everyone dreams about. A lot of pirate loot came in the form of barter goods, not buried treasure. What they did take, they usually spent immediately on booze, food, and whatever passed for fun in the 18th century ports. There wasn't a retirement plan. There wasn't even a savings jar. You stole. You spent. You repeated the process until you died, preferably drunk and unconscious. You remember stories from your first week. Tales of golden idols, chests overflowing with coins, and rubies the size of fists. You were told about a place called Dead Man's Bay, where a pirate buried 3 tons of treasure under a tree marked with a skull. You believed it then, but now, you've seen what pirates really bury. Food scraps, dead rats, and their hopes. One of the older crew members, Squib, drags out a crate of the ledgers from the last raid. He squints at the spidery handwriting and reads aloud. Invoice, 4 crates silk, 2 barrels dye, and 17 units. Bean paste? Someone groans. Someone else laughs. You just stare at the sky. Gristle suggests selling the silk at the next port. Thorne agrees, even though the port in question is probably crawling with people who'd arrest you just for smelling like piracy. Still, the ship changes course. What else is there to do? The next few days are slow. No sails on the horizon, no storms, no cannonballs. Just long, boring stretches of horizon and the increasingly awful realization that your socks may now be permanently damp. The silk cargo is slowly being used for everything except luxury. Bandages, makeshift toilet paper, and a weird fashion trend started by Maggot, who now wears a silk scarf and insists on being called Sir Maggot. At one point, Captain Thorne tries to motivate the crew with a speech. He climbs onto a barrel, spreads his arms dramatically and yells, "We are hunters of the sea! Our prey is profit, our claws are cutlasses, and the world shall tremble before our..." The barrel breaks. He goes down hard. Stabsy squawks, "Smooth one, idiot!" and someone actually laughs. For 5 full seconds, morale improves. You return to swabbing the deck, wondering if your life has become some kind of punishment loop. Work, eat, sleep, raid, fail, repeat. You hear whispers that other crews have better luck. A ship called the Night Mercy supposedly pulled in a chest of Portuguese gold. Another took over an entire sugar barge and lived like kings for a month before they drank themselves blind. Meanwhile, your ship smells like spoiled cinnamon and disappointment. One night, the crew gathers for a meeting. Rare event. Thorne addresses them with his usual flair. "We are not losers." Silence. Even Stabsy looks sceptical. He continues, "We simply Harvested the wrong fruit this time. What does that mean? Someone asks. It means we'll try again. Smarter. We'll chase better ships. We'll track the real prizes. No more chasing rumours and bean paste. You want to believe him? You need to believe him. Because if this is all there is, fighting for moth food and pretending it's treasure, you might lose what little sanity you have left. Quirky side note. There's a documented case of a pirate crew mistaking a ship full of tax documents for a treasure vessel. They stole everything, only to realise it was worthless without signatures and royal seals. Legend says they burned it out of sheer spite, then argued over who was to blame until one man bit someone's nose off. You don't know if that story's true, but it sounds about right. You fall asleep that night staring at the ceiling of the ship, which is now patched with pieces of red silk, flapping gently in the breeze. They glow in the moonlight like fancy band-aids on a dying beast. You dream of gold coins pouring from the sky. You hold out your hands to catch them. They turn into bean paste before they land. You wake up drenched in sweat, teeth aching, and throat raw from coughing. At first, you think it's just the usual, the sea heat, the suffocating stench of 50 unwashed men stacked like sardines, the mouldy food turning your insides into compost. But then you try to sit up, and a bolt of pain shoots through your back like someone drove a rusty spike straight down your spine. Your muscles twitch, your vision swims, and when you finally get upright, the world tilts hard left. You're sick, not pirate sick, not ate some bad stew sick. This is the real deal. The kind of sick where your body throws up its hands and walks out of the room. You groan, loud enough that someone actually hears. Fingers looks over from his hammock and raises one eyebrow. You dying? He asks, like he's hoping the answer is yes. You nod. Maybe. Probably. Who's to say? He shrugs. Tell Belly. If he don't feed you rat oil and rum, he might cut something off. The thought of seeing Belly makes you nauseous in a different way. But you drag yourself out of your hammock, clutching the support beam like a widow in a windstorm, and stagger toward the makeshift sick bay, which is really just a dark corner under the stairs with a bucket, 2 mouldy blankets, and what you hope is a medical kit but looks suspiciously like a tackle box. Belly meets you halfway, chewing something that crunches like bone. He takes one look at you and says, "Strip." You hesitate. Why? Need to see if it's plague, or demons, or a worm under your skin. You strip, slowly, regretfully. He pokes your ribs, sniffs your armpit, mutters something in what might be Latin, and finally pours a shot of warm rum into a chipped mug and hands it to you. That's it, you croak, and he shrugs. Could amputate if it helps you feel seen. You drink the rum. Historically, medical care on pirate ships was generous. If your definition of care includes bloodletting, leeches, hot knives, and highly experimental rum applications. Pirates didn't have doctors. They had surgeons, and that title was often given to whoever owned the cleanest knife or had once visited a hospital without getting arrested. Wounds were treated with grease, seawater, or just ignored until they became someone else's problem. Fevers were met with superstition, curses, and if you were lucky, a bucket of cold water to the face. You lie down on a scratchy blanket, shivering even though your skin's burning. Your mind wanders in fever loops, silk sails flapping into mouths, oranges screaming, the parrot speaking only in riddles. You drift in and out, sweating through your clothes, mouth dry as powder, your limbs floating somewhere behind you, voices blur, time folds. At one point you're pretty sure someone is trying to drain the fever with a spoon. You hear Squib muttering an old sea prayer over your body. He stops halfway through and says, "Nah, too early," and walks off. Later, maybe a day, maybe 3, you wake up drenched but clearer. The fever has broken, but you've lost a few pounds and at least 2 layers of dignity. You try to sit up. Everything aches, but you're upright. That's something. Maggot comes over with a bowl of what might be broth and a rag soaked in lemon water. "We saved a lemon for you," he says solemnly, like it's a holy relic. The captain didn't notice. You sip it. It's the best thing you've ever tasted. And that's when you realise just how many of your crewmates haven't gotten better. The man across from you hasn't moved in 2 days. He was coughing blood yesterday. Now he's silent. Cold. No one mentions it. Another sailor nearby is missing 3 toes. He lost them to frostbite last time the ship hit colder waters, and they never healed properly. They just ooze and smell like old fish. He smiles at you. You smile back because anything else would feel cruel. You limp up to the deck, squinting at the sun, and everything feels a little off. The ship rocks just a little too hard. The sails hang at odd angles. The crew is slower, quieter. Everyone looks tired, paler. Someone's walking with a limp you don't remember. One guy's arm is wrapped in what looks like a silk tablecloth, and he's missing a thumb. You realise what's happening. The ship is falling apart from the inside. It's not mutiny, not a storm, not a cannonball, it's rot. Human rot. Fever, scurvy, infections, wounds that don't close, teeth that won't stop bleeding. The little things no one talks about. The slow unravelling. You sit near the mast and stare at the water. It's calm today, almost glassy. You should feel peace. But instead, you feel the kind of quiet that comes before something snaps. Historically, pirate crews were lucky if they had a surgeon. Even when they did, treatment was brutal. No anaesthesia. Just grit your teeth and hope you pass out before the knife goes in. Amputations were common. Burns were treated with tar. Infections were, well, mostly ignored. Once gangrene set in, your best hope was a fast death or a friend with a steady hand and a dull sore. Quirky fringe fact. Some pirates believe sickness was caused by bad luck or evil spirits, not germs. There are records of ships throwing sick men overboard to lift the curse. Comforting, right? You watch as Fingers walks by with a bandage wrapped around his thigh, leaking something yellow. He doesn't flinch, just limps to the bow and lights a pipe. You wonder how many of these guys are dying in slow motion and pretending it's just another Tuesday. Later you overhear the captain muttering to himself. He's flipping through a logbook, trying to remember how many men he had at the start of this voyage. He can't. That's a bad sign. You try to sleep that night, but the coughing around you keeps you awake. That, and the quiet sobbing from someone in the corner. You don't ask who it is. You just lie there, counting the creaks in the wood and wondering how many more nights you'll survive. There's no medicine, no miracle, just you, a dwindling crew, and a bucket of lukewarm rum masquerading as healthcare. You'd laugh, but it'd probably trigger another coughing fit. By now you've grown so used to the smell that you almost miss it when it's briefly gone. Almost. But it always returns, thick, greasy, layered like an old stew that's been reheated too many times. It clings to the back of your throat, seeps into your clothes, coats your tongue when you breathe too deeply. A mix of mould, salt, sweat, bilge water, rot, and the kind of body odour that should legally count as a war crime. You can't wash it off. You can't scrub it away. You are it. It's in the hammocks, the sails, the barrels, the ropes. Everything smells like despair and damp humanity. You catch yourself scratching at your neck one afternoon and realise you've developed a rash in the exact shape of your collar. The salty air, the unwashed fabric, the constant chafing. It's a perfect storm of irritation. Belly tells you to rub fish oil on it. You don't know if it helps or just makes you flammable. You try not to breathe through your nose as you descend into the lower hold to fetch something from storage. Big mistake. The air below deck isn't just foul, it's heavy, wet. Like breathing through a dirty sponge soaked in old milk. You gag before you even reach the bottom of the ladder. The bilge is down here. That's where the ship's wastewater, runoff and various leaks pool together like a sad, stinking soup. You've been warned not to fall in. One guy did. Twice Lucky Tom. He hasn't been right since. Walks funny, smells worse, and occasionally hums to himself while staring into the middle distance. You pass the bilge and gag again. There's something floating in it. Might be a boot, might be a rat, might be a former crew member. No one checks. You don't want to know. The barrels down here are coated in slime. You brush one with your sleeve by accident and instantly regret it. Whatever it is, it's warm. You grab what you came for, salt pork as always, and climb back to the upper deck, already scratching your arm where the slime touched you. The air up here is a bit better. Not good, just better. It has motion, breeze, sky. But still, the ship itself oozes foulness. The wood is soaked through with years of sweat, smoke, blood and rum. Every footstep stirs it up. You can't escape it. Historically, the smell of a pirate ship, or really any ship from that era, was ungodly. There were no bathrooms. Human waste was tossed overboard when people remembered. But let's be honest, people didn't always remember. Laundry, non-existent. Most sailors wore the same outfit for months, letting the ocean air cleanse them, which it didn't. And there was no deodorant, no soap, no real sense of sanitation. The stench was part of the package. At night, it's worse. Below deck becomes a swamp of body heat and bad breath. 50 men packed in hammocks, snoring, coughing, muttering, sweating through their clothes. It's humid, even when the air outside is cool. You've taken to sleeping with a rag over your nose. Not that it helps. It just gives the illusion of safety, like holding a feather in front of a cannon. Gristle offers you a smell cure one evening. It's a bundle of dried herbs tied together with twine, meant to hang around your neck. Keeps the stink away, he says proudly. You put it on. It smells like spoiled mint and burnt celery. It does not help. But now you smell different, which makes you a target. Everyone else starts avoiding you like you're the one who stinks, which is hilariously ironic. And speaking of irony, here's a fun fringe fact. Some pirates believe that bad smells could actually ward off illness. There are records of men deliberately dirtying themselves to protect against plague and fever. So in a way, your misery is protective. You can't decide if that's comforting or just further proof that pirates were clinically insane. One afternoon you're ordered to clean the captain's quarters, which should be a luxury. It's not. If anything, it's worse. Captain Thorne lives like a raccoon with a gambling addiction. His bed is just straw and silk layered into a lumpy nest. The floor is sticky. His desk is covered in food scraps, maps, and questionable stains. And then there's the monkey. The monkey, whose name might be Clarence or You Beast, lives in a cage but is often loose. He throws things. Sometimes they're fruit pits. Sometimes they're not. You spend 20 minutes trying to swat him off the captain's pillow before giving up and just fluffing around him. The monkey watches you with judgment in his tiny eyes. You understand. You hate yourself too. The captain returns just as you're scrubbing a suspicious puddle near the door. He sniffs, frowns and mutters, "Smells better in here. Maybe too clean." Then he walks out. You stare after him, wondering if he's actually lost the ability to distinguish scents, or just enjoys wallowing in his own man-musk like some sort of sea beast. Later someone drops a barrel in the galley and the lid flies off. Inside, pickled eggs, or what used to be eggs. They've gone grey and smell like betrayal. Belly shrugs, scoops one out, and bites into it with a crunch that echoes across the deck. You nearly vomit on your boots. Stabsy the parrot yells, "What's in the jar, Belly?" And you realise he's been traumatised too. Even your clothes have turned against you. Your shirt has developed a crust. Your trousers smell like fermented goat. Your socks could stand up on their own if you let them. You tried rinsing everything with seawater once. Huge mistake. It only made the salt cling harder, and now everything hurts as well as smells. You can't even sit comfortably. There's chafing in places no one should ever discuss out loud. You've stopped caring what you smell like. That's the final stage. Acceptance. You are the stink. The stink is you. When a new recruit boards, young, fresh-faced and optimistic, you watch his face crumple the first time he gets a whiff of the lower hold. He throws up, twice. You nod solemnly. You'll get used to it, you tell him. But you never really do. You just stop noticing, until the wind changes and the full weight of the ship's decay punches you in the face again like a rotting ghost. And still, you carry on, because there's nowhere else to go. The screaming wakes you before dawn. High-pitched, frantic, wet-sounding. You don't even have time to process what it means before 3 men go thundering past your hammock, nearly knocking you out with their elbows and bare feet. One shouts, "Overboard! He's overboard!" which is a phrase you hoped never to hear before breakfast. You sit up too fast and slam your head against the beam above you. Pain radiates through your skull as you lurch out of your hammock, dazed and already nauseated. Up on deck, the chaos is in full swing. The ship lists slightly to starboard, the sky still dark and bruised with the last traces of night. Men rush to the side rail, peering out at the black water below. You follow, shoving through the crowd just in time to see a single hand disappear beneath the waves, fingers spread wide, grasping at nothing. Someone shouts, "Get a rope!" But it's too late. The sea is swallowing him. One moment he's there, the next, gone. Smooth, flat, quiet. You look around, no sails nearby, no land in sight, just water in every direction and a faint pink glow on the horizon. "He fell in taking a piss," Gristle mutters next to you, eyes bloodshot and unfazed. "Didn't hold the rail. Idiot." Then he lights his pipe and walks off like someone just lost a sock, not their life. You stand there, stunned, watching the waves. No one dives in, no one throws a raft. A few men curse under their breath, not because they're sad, but because they like the guy's boots. The captain appears minutes later, already chewing something and looking annoyed. He grunts. "Mark the time." Feed the log. Back to work. Back to work. That's it. 1 minute you're swabbing the deck with a man, the next you're stepping over the wet spot where he used to be. Historically, falling overboard was basically a death sentence. No life rings, no radios, no one to toss you a flotation device while yelling comforting things. You went in, you disappeared. Even if the crew wanted to save you, and let's be honest, they usually didn't, the ship couldn't turn fast enough to help. The sea didn't care, it just took, and sometimes the sea didn't take fast enough. A few weeks ago, a man got stranded when the longboat drifted too far during a port stop. He was found hours later, floating on a bit of wood, delirious, sunburnt, muttering about a ghost ship filled with angry turtles. No one believed him, but Stabsy started hissing at shadows for a week after, so maybe there's something to it. Later that day, you're sent down to the hold to help reorganise the powder room. You're with Maggot, Fingers and a guy called Jarhead, because he once wore a cooking pot for a week as a helmet. No one remembers why. As you're stacking kegs of black powder, Jarhead casually says, "Sharks get a taste for humans." They come back. They remember. Maggot stops mid-lift. "What, like revenge?" "Yup," Jarhead replies. "Saw it once." Shark followed a ship for 2 weeks, ate 3 men. Captain said it was the same one, said it had plans. You stare at him. "Are you making this up?" He doesn't answer, just stares back, dead serious. You file that away under disturbing pirate folklore that might be true and carry on. That night you can't sleep. Every time the ship rocks, your heart jumps. You imagine slipping, sliding, rolling right out into the dark. You picture the cold slap of the sea, the panic of treading water, the sound of the ship drifting away without you. Worse, you imagine something brushing your leg, something circling. You curl tighter in your hammock and pray for morning. The next day, Captain Thorne assigns safety drills. It's laughable. The drills consist of him pointing at the rail and shouting, "Hold it or die!" That's it. That's the drill. Someone asks if there's a plan for man overboard. Thorne says, "Yeah. Don't be the man." Helpful. A few crew members tie ropes around their waists when they work near the edge now. Not because they were told to, but because no one wants to go out like the piss guy. You do the same. It chafes and itches, but you'll take that over becoming shark bait. Speaking of which, there's a new addition to the nightmare. You start seeing shadows near the ship, not in the hold, not in your fever dreams, in the water, big slow-moving shapes just beneath the surface. Sometimes a dorsal fin slices the waves. Sometimes you see nothing, just a swirl or a flash, but it's there. One afternoon someone tosses the kitchen slop overboard, and not 2 seconds later the water churns. White spray, dark flashes, something snapping. Everyone crowds the rail. Stabsy shrieks and flies into the rigging. Belly just mutters, "They know we're leaking." No one swims anymore, not even to bathe. That evening the crew takes a moment to honour the man who fell, sort of. They pass around a bottle of grog, tell a few lies about his bravery, then immediately segue into a story about another guy who fell in and lost both legs to a creature with teeth like oars. Comforting. Then someone plays a cracked fiddle and a few men dance. You drink your grog in silence. Historically, pirates had superstitions about the sea. They believed in sea monsters, cursed waters, ghost ships, and yes, vengeful sharks. Some even claimed the ocean could hear thoughts, that if you cursed her, she'd take you. You used to laugh at that. Now you just keep your mouth shut and your hands gripped tight to the rail. Quirky fringe detail. Some ships kept pigs aboard because they were thought to never drown and could guide men back to land. Your ship had a pig once. It was delicious. As the days go on, the fear lingers. You start walking slower, gripping ropes tighter, keeping one eye on the horizon and one eye on your feet. Because it's not a dramatic cannonball or a raging fire that gets most pirates. It's a slippery board, a missed handhold, a bad step, and then you're gone. No splash, no goodbye, just silence. At some point you stop noticing that you haven't bathed in weeks. That's the twisted miracle of pirate life. After a while, your brain gives up trying to keep track of things like time, hygiene and shame. You still remember what a bath feels like vaguely. Warm water, soap, maybe the soft scrape of a sponge. But now, the closest you get to personal cleanliness is a torrential downpour while you're clinging to the rigging, screaming at the sky and trying not to get blown overboard. Not quite the same vibe. It's been nearly 2 months since you last washed anything properly. Your skin is a patchwork of grime, salt and sunburn. Your scalp itches constantly. You think something might be living in your eyebrows. You're afraid to check. Your clothes, still the same ones you put on what feels like a lifetime ago, are stiff with salt and sweat. When you peel them off to air out your body in the privacy of a quiet corner of the hold, the shirt keeps its shape on the floor, like it has become its own cursed little person. But no one else is any better. The entire ship smells like a herd of goats that's been marinating in brine and fish oil. Even the fancy pirates, the ones who used to wear ruffled shirts and clean boots, now walk around with dirt-caked toenails and hair matted into greasy ropes. You'd think someone would complain. Nope, this is just normal now. The stench is part of the air, like humidity or suffering. Every so often, someone gets brave and lowers a bucket over the side to rinse off. A bucket bath, they call it. You tried it once. Seawater, especially warm seawater, does not clean you. It just layers you in ocean slime and makes everything chafe even worse, not to mention the jellyfish. One man, Broom, got a sting in a place no man should ever be stung. He hasn't walked right since. He also hasn't stopped humming. It's unsettling. There's a barrel near the galley labelled fresh water, hands only. It's guarded like treasure, and you only get a scoop of it if your fingers are visibly green. Even then, you're encouraged to just rinse and let the salt do the rest. You'd argue with that logic, but at this point the salt is your skin. Your pores sweat brine, your lips crack and bleed in horizontal lines, and you've started chewing on tiny splinters without noticing. Hygiene has turned from a habit into a fantasy. Historically, pirate hygiene was shockingly just as bad as you'd imagine. Bathing was rare, especially at sea. Fresh water was precious and saved for drinking. Soap existed, but good luck finding it unless you raided a merchant ship carrying luxury goods. Most pirates scrubbed with sand, salt water, or nothing at all. Lice, fleas, and skin infections were standard. You didn't clean to stay healthy. You cleaned because something was crawling on you and wouldn't stop. Fingers claims he hasn't bathed since last spring. You ask if he's being metaphorical. He says no. He says the dirt is protective. He also carries a pouch of garlic he rubs under his arms before battle to ward off spirits. You're not sure if it works, but it definitely wards off humans. No one sits near him anymore. Even the captain has stopped pretending. He once wore a red velvet coat with brass buttons and a feathered hat. Now he wears a belt made of rope and a shirt that might have started its life as a curtain. He smells like meat gone sour and something you can only describe as emotional mildew. One night you see him picking seaweed out of his beard and muttering, "A fine salad that," before eating it. You'd laugh, but your own situation isn't much better. You haven't trimmed your nails in so long they're starting to curl. Your gums are still swollen from the scurvy incident, and your breath could probably knock out a parrot. Stabsy avoids you now, which to be fair is an upgrade from him screaming insults at your face. One day the crew pulls up to a small island, nothing but rocks, trees and a waterfall that spills fresh, clear water into a lagoon. It's paradise. For 5 minutes. Then everyone runs for it. Dozens of grown, filthy men sprinting into the shallows, stripping off their clothes and diving into the water like they've just been reborn. You hesitate at first. Then your skin screams louder than your shame, and you dive in too. It's cold, it stings, it hurts. But oh gods, it's glorious. You scrub at your arms like you're trying to shed a second skin. You watch as layers of grime melt off into the water in greasy clouds. Someone passes you a chunk of soap, real soap, and you nearly weep. You use too much of it and don't even care. You scrub your scalp, your face, your toes, you dunk your shirt, your trousers, everything. Then someone farts in the water, and the moment is over. Everyone scrambles out. You stand there, wet and vaguely clean, clothes dripping, hair sticking to your forehead, and for the first time in weeks, you feel human again. Not good, mind you, just slightly less foul. Quirky hygiene trivia. Pirates often carried little combs, not for vanity, but to pick lice out of their hair. Some also wore earrings believing they improved eyesight or helped ward off disease. None of that worked, of course, but hey, at least they tried. Back on the ship, the smell is almost tolerable for a day or two. You sleep more deeply, you breathe more freely, but it doesn't last. The sweat returns, the food boils, the humidity rises, the hammocks soak through, and just like that the funk creeps back in, slow and sinister. By the third day, it's like the bath never happened. And you sigh. Because of course. You're sitting on a barrel one dull afternoon staring at the horizon like it owes you money, when Gristle wanders over and flops down beside you with a long theatrical groan. "You ever think about burying treasure?" he asks, cracking his knuckles like he's about to unearth some wisdom, like actually digging a hole and sticking a chest in it. You blink at him. "Do people even do that?" He chuckles low and gravelly. "Nah, that's just in stories. Nobody buries treasure, not unless they're drunk, dying, or both." You sit with that for a second, mildly betrayed. All your childhood ideas about pirates included maps, secret caves, cryptic riddles, and shovels. Now here's this flea-bitten human sausage telling you it's all fake. Turns out he's not wrong. Historically, the idea of buried treasure is almost pure fiction. Thanks to authors like Robert Louis Stevenson, and the whole X marks the spot nonsense. Real pirates, they didn't bury loot. They spent it. Fast. As soon as they reached port, their gold, silver, and whatever else they plundered got traded for booze, food, weapons, clothes, and company. Whatever they didn't spend was stolen, lost in storms, gambled away, or used to bribe corrupt officials. There was no long-term planning, no retirement strategy, just instant gratification on repeat until death. You glance across the deck and watch a few of the crew arguing over a single gold coin someone found in the captain's quarters. The argument ends with a punch to the neck and a new coin-shaped dent in the mast. So yeah, burying treasure would require an unnatural amount of patience and trust for a pirate, which is like asking a cat to plan your taxes. Maggot once claimed he buried a treasure chest on a beach outside Cartagena. Everyone laughed. He swore it was real, said it was filled with silver candlesticks, pearls, and something called the Claw of Night. He also said he marked the spot with a cursed tree and a dead goat. You asked if he had a map. He said yes, then pulled out a piece of parchment with nothing but a single X in the middle. You're still not sure if he was joking or just concussed. Later that day, the captain calls a meeting. This usually means someone's about to get blamed for something, or he's about to announce another terrible plan. You gather with the others near the mainmast as he clears his throat, holding a tattered scroll that smells like mildew and ambition. "We got a tip," he says, voice low and dramatic. "Treasure. Real treasure. Spanish gold. Buried in a cove not far from here." There's a collective groan which he ignores. He continues. "Map came from a reliable source." Gristle leans over and mutters, "Reliable means someone at a bar said it while spitting blood into a bucket." You sigh. Here we go again. But the captain's already rolled the map out on a crate. It's crude. Childish even. A vague coastline. A couple of palm trees. An X. The word glory scrawled across the top in enthusiastic capital letters. The parrot squawks, "You're all going to die," which honestly feels like a more accurate label. Still, the crew gets excited. The idea of gold stirs something in the bones. Maybe it's greed, maybe it's desperation, or maybe everyone just needs a reason to believe this mess has a point. Even you feel it. Just a flicker. But what if? What if the map is real? What if there is treasure out there? What if, against all odds, you dig up something that isn't mouldy fabric or expired bean paste? 2 days later, you reach the cove. It's beautiful, of course. White sand, lazy palm trees, turquoise water, so clear it looks fake. The kind of place you'd happily retire if you weren't covered in bites, salt rash, and creeping existential dread. The crew disembarks, shovels in hand, excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. You dig, and dig, and dig. Hours pass. Sweat pours, tempers flare. The sand gets everywhere. Your boots, your mouth, your dreams. You find one crab, 3 rocks shaped like potatoes, and something that might have once been a spoon. Then someone hits wood. Everyone freezes. The captain yells, "Keep digging," and the shovels fly faster. You uncover a chest. Old, weather-warped, covered in barnacles. Hearts pound. Hands tremble. Someone starts humming a fanfare. The captain opens the chest with dramatic flair. Inside, rotten parchment, rusty nails, a small wooden idol shaped like a duck. Silence. Then Peggy Lou says, "Maybe the treasure was the duck all along." Someone throws sand at him. You carry the chest back to the ship anyway, because after all that work, throwing it away feels like admitting defeat. The idol becomes a mascot, strapped to the prow like a sad figurehead. The captain calls it fate. Stabsy refuses to perch near it. That night you sit on the deck, watching the waves glow silver in the moonlight, and think about how treasure isn't just a lie. It's a necessary one. It gives people something to chase, something to dream about, a reason to keep digging, even when the only thing you ever find is wet wood and disappointment. Quirky detail. One of the only confirmed cases of buried pirate treasure involved Captain Kidd, who allegedly buried gold on Gardiner's Island in New York. But even that was mostly a panic move, an attempt to hide loot before he got caught. It didn't save him. He was hanged, and his body was left on display as a warning. You lie back, arms behind your head, the wooden duck watching you from its perch. You wonder what kind of idiot carves a duck and hides it in a box on purpose. Then again, what kind of idiot chases treasure maps drawn in rum and blood? Oh, right, you. You wake up to the sound of the captain screaming at his monkey, not shouting, not raising his voice, screaming, full-throated, red-faced, chest-puffed wailing. It's too early for this. The sun isn't even up yet, and already you're being dragged into the latest instalment of Captain Thorne verses. Clarence the Devil Ape, now in its third week of uninterrupted madness. You roll out of your hammock, stepping into someone's discarded sock and immediately questioning every life decision you've made since boarding this cursed ship. As you climb onto the main deck, the scene is somehow worse than expected. The captain is standing on top of a barrel, one boot missing, hair flying in all directions, sword raised skyward, shouting, "You thieving little goblin, I'll shave you bald." The monkey, naturally, is perched smugly on the ship's bell, holding a very small, very sharp knife in one hand, and what looks suspiciously like the captain's wig in the other. Everyone else on deck is pretending this isn't happening. Peg-Eye Lou is scrubbing the railing like his life depends on it. Fingers is trimming his toenails with a fishhook. Belly is sitting cross-legged, calmly peeling an orange with a spoon. No one wants to get involved. Because the thing is, and this is something you've been learning over time, your captain isn't just eccentric. He's unstable, teetering, wildly, on the edge of full-blown nautical insanity. It's not just the monkey or the wigs or the ongoing argument he has with the ship's figurehead, which he insists responds in riddles. It's everything. One day he's drawing sea monsters on the map with charcoal. The next he's ordering the crew to sail east because the clouds smell like gold. He talks to ghosts in the rigging, claims he once arm-wrestled a kraken, holds nightly strategy sessions with a sack of onions he's named the council. You try to stay out of his way, but it's hard when he corners you to ask if you believe that time is a flat circle shaped like a turtle. And yet, somehow, he's still the captain. Historically, many pirate captains were chosen by vote. Crews elected them based on skill, charisma, or sheer dominance. Some were brilliant tacticians, others not so much. But once you had the captain's hat, you held onto it until death or mutiny. There were no performance reviews, no demotions, just swords, grudges, and occasionally a polite shove off the side of the ship. You once asked Gristle why no one's replaced Thorne. He just shrugged and said, "He wins fights and smells worse than fear. That's enough." Thorne eventually climbs down from the barrel, huffing and muttering, monkey still triumphant on the bell. He storms into his cabin and slams the door. You hear glass breaking. The monkey flings the wig into the sea and screams in what might be Latin. Stabsy shouts, "He's lost it!" And honestly, it's hard to argue. You try to go about your day. You're on hull duty, scraping barnacles off the side of the ship with a rusted spatula, while dangling over the ocean from a fraying rope. It's not glamorous. It's not even effective. The barnacles seem to be winning. You wonder, mid-scrape, if the ship is literally falling apart beneath you. Later, Thorne re-emerges. He's now wearing a woman's bonnet, a torn velvet robe, and a necklace made of dried fishtails. No one dares comment. He strolls the deck, giving vague commands in rhyme. "Swab the deck or break your neck," he sing-songs. "Hoist the sail or go to jail." You swear he winks at a cannon and says, "Not you, darling, not today." At lunch, he eats alone, speaking in French to his wine bottle. Then he challenges Maggot to a staring contest. Maggot loses, even though Thorne never opens his eyes. There are murmurs among the crew, whispers of mutiny, or at least a sabbatical, but no one's brave enough to start it. The last person who challenged the captain was Toothless Jim, and he accidentally fell into the anchor chain and came out looking like a pancake made of bad choices. Still, the unrest simmers. That night during grog hour, Peg-Eye Lou leans in close and mutters, "He's cracked. Got a bird in his brain. We need a plan." You ask what kind of plan? He says, "Something quiet, something slow, something that smells like lemons and treason." You nod, mostly because you're terrified not to. A few days later, the captain orders the ship to anchor near a small island with magical fruit energy. There's nothing magical about it, just palm trees, rocks, and an alarming number of screaming seabirds. But Thorne insists we stay 3 nights to align with the moon's romantic essence. You don't even ask anymore. The crew scavenges while the captain dances shirtless on the beach, shouting poetry at the waves. You find coconuts. Belly finds mushrooms. Fingers finds a snake that bites him and immediately dies, which everyone agrees is probably a warning. That night, Thorne announces that the monkey is now first mate. He draws up a little scroll with the ship's chain of command. 1. Captain Thorne. 2. Clarence the monkey. Dritta Stubbsy. 4. The Onion Council. 5. Everyone else. The crew stares at the list, then at each other, then at the captain, who's now trying to teach Clarence to salute. No one laughs, no one protests, because frankly, no one wants to find out what happens when you insult the second in command. Quirky fringe fact: some historical pirate captains did keep animals aboard, including parrots, monkeys, and even cats. But none of them gave those animals command authority. That particular bit of insanity appears to be exclusive to your current situation. You lay in your hammock that night staring up at the creaking beams, wondering what's worse, being led by a madman or being too scared to stop him. You've grown used to violence, disease, hunger, even the constant looming stink. But now there's a new danger: irrational leadership wrapped in flamboyant delusion. You wonder if the sea will kill you, or if it'll be your captain first. You can tell things have hit a new low the moment the ship stops moving, not because of a storm or a battle, but because Captain Thorne simply won't decide where to go. The sails hang limp, catching a breeze that never seems to last. The water's calm enough to reflect the sky like a mirror, but instead of feeling peaceful, it feels wrong, stalled, a floating coffin in waiting. The monkey sits on the prow, staring at nothing, clutching the captain's pipe like it's in charge of the weather. "We're not lost," Thorne announces for the 3rd time that morning, pacing the deck barefoot in his tattered velvet robe. "We're recalibrating." His voice is louder than necessary, as if volume will make it true. Recalibrating apparently means drifting aimlessly near a mosquito-choked port town where no one wants you. You've been anchored offshore for 3 days now, staring at the same strip of muddy beach, a few palm trees, and a crumbling fort flying a flag you don't recognize. Every night the bugs descend on the ship like a biblical plague. They bite through shirts, through trousers, even through hope. Your skin so dotted with red welts you look like a connect-the-dots map of misery. On the 2nd day, a fight breaks out between 2 sailors over the last piece of semi-fresh bread. On the 3rd, someone throws a shoe at the captain's door. No one admits to it. The monkey starts shrieking at shadows. The whole ship smells like stagnant water and boredom. Historically, pirates spent more time stuck near shore than actually raiding. They couldn't always dock at legitimate ports, too risky, so they'd anchor offshore, sending small boats into trade, refill water, or find information. But this left crews stewing in their own tempers for days or weeks, especially in tropical climates. The longer they lingered, the more discipline eroded. Diseases spread faster, supplies rotted, knives came out over petty arguments. You're seeing it firsthand now. Every hour stretches like molasses. You swab the same section of deck 3 times just to have something to do. Peg-Eye Lou starts carving obscene drawings into the mast. Barely experiments with new recipes involving dried fish, bananas, and whatever mystery powder he found in a crate. Half the crew gets stomach cramps after eating it. Someone strings up a hammock on the main boom and refuses to come down, calling it his tower. Gristle leans against the railing one night and mutters, "This is how ships go bad. Not storms, not battles, just sitting." He flicks a mosquito off his arm, watches it fly, then adds, "Idleness makes killers of everyone." You're starting to believe him. The crew's gone quiet, not calm. Quiet like the low growl before a dog bites. People mutter at night, whispering about mutiny, about running off, about anything that isn't sitting here waiting for orders from a captain who now wears an onion like a brooch. The port itself doesn't help. It's barely a town, just a strip of mud and rickety shacks. At dusk you can see the faint glow of fires from the shore and hear faint singing, but no one ventures out to investigate. The captain says you're negotiating invisibly. Everyone else thinks he's just scared of whoever controls that fort. One morning, a boat rows out from the shore. 2 figures inside. They get close enough for you to see they're traders, carrying sacks of something that smells like citrus and lies. They climb aboard, eyes darting, and spread out a handful of goods: limes, saltfish, cheap knives, and news. Thorn buys the limes but refuses to hear the news. Says the ocean tells him everything he needs to know. You watch as one of the traders smirks, pocketing the coins. He's already looking at your ship like it's a floating story he'll tell tonight in some tavern. The crazy pirate with the monkey and the onion jewellery. Quirky fringe fact: some pirate crews actually had written waiting protocols for these lulls. Songs, games, even wrestling matches to burn off steam. Others simply drank themselves unconscious. Your ship does a mix of both, mostly the drinking. By the 5th day, the bugs have driven everyone half mad. People scratch themselves raw. You wake up with welts on your eyelids. The monkey throws the captain's logbook overboard. Thorn simply watches it float away, murmuring about casting off old skins. That night you can't sleep. The air is thick, unmoving, buzzing with insects and low murmurs from the crew. You stare at the beams above you, fingernails digging into your palms, wondering how much longer this can hold before something snaps. You imagine waking up to find the captain gone, the monkey steering the ship, the crew carving up the deck for firewood. When dawn comes, the horizon is still empty. The fort's flag still flutters on shore. The mosquitoes still hum like tiny saws. The crew moves slowly, scratching, muttering, eyes darting to the captain's cabin. It's not the storm or the cannon fire that scares you anymore, it's the waiting. It happens at dawn, the kind of dawn where the sea looks like polished pewter and the sky like ash. You're still half asleep in your hammock when the first shout echoes through the hold. Sails! Sails on the port side. It's a sound you've learned to dread. Everyone bolts upright at once, banging heads and elbows, scrambling for weapons they barely know how to use. You snatch up your rusty dagger and stumble toward the ladder, heart hammering. Up on deck, the horizon is already alive with movement. Not a merchant ship this time. Not another ragged vessel like your own. It's a navy ship, sleek, disciplined, bristling with cannons and flying a flag that promises only one thing: capture. You can see the glint of uniforms moving in neat rows, the flash of sunlight on polished metal. No drunk shouting, no chaos, just a predator closing in. The crew goes quiet like a cornered animal. Even Stabsy stops squawking. Captain Thorn bursts out of his cabin barefoot, hair wild, robe hanging open. He scans the horizon, then grins like a man who's already lost his mind but thinks it's a poker game. "Ah," he says, "guests." No one laughs. "Run or fight," Pegailu mutters, already fumbling with a pistol that may or may not work. The captain tilts his head toward the navy ship, now cutting the distance with alarming speed. "Too late to run," he says. "Prepare for diplomacy." Then he pulls out his cutlass. Diplomacy apparently means chaos. The crew springs into motion, but it's sloppy, frantic. Cannons are rolled into position but not tied down. Powder spills across the deck. Someone drops a ball overboard. Someone else tries to hoist the sails, only to realise they're already up. You run with a barrel of shot toward Fingers, who's swearing and ramming powder like a man possessed. Historically, when pirates were captured by the Navy, it almost never ended well. Trials were swift, sentences harsher, and executions public. The gallows was a very real endpoint for most who dared raise a black flag. A few were pardoned for turning informant, but most swung. Some were even tarred and gibbeted, their corpses displayed in cages at harbour entrances as a warning. You think about this as you load another cannonball. The first shot from the Navy ship roars across the water. It lands just short, spraying cold salt water over the deck. The second tears a chunk from the aft railing. Splinters fly. The crew ducks as one. Stabsy lets out a shriek that sounds like "we're doomed," which isn't helping morale. The captain shouts orders, but they're more like riddles. "Fire at the sky to hit the sea," he bellows. "Aim for their pride." Nobody knows what that means. Pegailu just fires blind. The cannon bucks and smokes. The shot splashes wide. The Navy ship doesn't miss. Its next volley smashes into your starboard side, splintering wood, knocking men flat. You're thrown against a barrel, wind knocked out of you. You cough, tasting blood. Someone screams. Someone else doesn't get back up, and then the grappling hooks fly. Iron claws bite into the railing. Ropes snake over the deck. The Navy isn't just going to blast you apart, they're going to board. And unlike pirates, they're trained, disciplined, uniformed. You see them already swarming the ropes, cutlasses glinting, pistols ready. The captain laughs, actually laughs. "Let's greet our guests properly," he yells and charges. Clarence the monkey leaps from the mast with a screech, landing on a navy officer's face and clawing like it's been waiting for this moment all its life. You duck low, gripping your dagger, heart pounding in your ears. The uniformed man swings at you with a sabre. You parry clumsily, more by luck than skill, and slash at his arm. He curses, stumbles, and another pirate tackles him from behind. Around you, the deck becomes a blur of blue coats and filthy rags, blades flashing, pistols cracking, smoke hanging thick. Someone sets fire to a powder keg. Someone else shouts to put it out. A navy officer grabs Maggot by the collar and hurls him into the mast. Maggot laughs like a lunatic and bites the man's ear. You're pressed back toward the railing, the fight closing in. You glance at the water. Cold, grey, endless. You think about the man who fell in a few days ago, about the sharks, about the slow fade beneath the waves. You grip the railing tighter and decide drowning might actually be worse than hanging. Then you hear the whistle, sharp, final. The Navy captain is standing on his own deck, gesturing sharply. Reinforcements surge over the ropes. Your crew is outnumbered 2-1, maybe 3. You see Peg-Eye Lou go down under a pile of uniforms. Fingers drops his pistol and raises his hands. Belly collapses near the galley door, coughing blood. Even Stabsy falls silent. Captain Thorne still fights, swinging his cutlass in wide theatrical arcs. He looks magnificent, ridiculous, doomed. The monkey clings to his shoulder like a tiny demon. For a moment it's like a painting, a mad pirate king at the edge of defeat. Then 3 navy men rush him at once. You drop your dagger as it's over. Historically, some pirates fought to the death rather than be captured, but most surrendered when they realised the odds. You can see it happening now. One by one, your crewmates throw down their weapons, hands up, eyes down. The navy herds them into a group near the mainmast. You're shoved into line, wrists bound with coarse rope that bites your skin. The captain is finally disarmed. He grins at you all, eyes wild, and says, "Don't worry. I've been in worse places." You don't believe him. Quirky fringe fact. Some captured pirates tried to pretend they were just innocent sailors forced to serve. A few even pulled it off. Most didn't. Trials in colonial ports were swift and brutal, and the public loved a good hanging day. It was like a festival with snacks. You stand on the deck, wrists tied, watching the Navy sailors loot your ship, toss bodies overboard, and stomp on everything you once thought might matter. The horizon looks endless, but you've never felt more trapped. This isn't a storm you can ride out. This is the end of the line, the noose itches. That's the first thing you notice. It's rough, scratchy hemp, frayed just enough to scrape the skin raw, but still strong enough to snap your neck like a dry twig. The knot sits heavy against your collarbone as you stand on the wooden platform, ankles shackled, wrists bound behind you, sweat trickling down your spine despite the early morning chill. You're trying to look anywhere but down, but it's hard to ignore the way the platform creaks with every twitch of your leg. One gust of wind and it feels like you'll fall through the floor and into eternity. You're not alone, of course. There are 7 of you lined up in a row, what's left of the crew who didn't get lucky enough to be shot during capture, or tossed into a festering jail cell somewhere in a port town that smells like horses and rot. Gristle's next to you. He's chewing something, jaw twitching like he's trying to pretend this is all just a minor inconvenience. Peg-Eye Lou is 2 spots down, staring at the horizon like he might still swim for it. Maggot's humming, loudly, and off-key. It's making your nerves worse. The town square is packed. Everyone in the colony has shown up, kids on shoulders, merchants peddling roasted nuts and sugar sticks, ladies in bonnets whispering behind gloved hands. Public executions are apparently a great excuse for socialising. Someone even brought a picnic. A man in a top hat is sketching you with charcoal on a pad of paper like you're a street performer. You can smell beer and roasted meat drifting through the crowd, mingling with the thick, sweaty scent of death. And behind all of it, looming like a bad decision, is the gallows. Twin beams, twin ropes, twin trapdoors. The wood is stained dark from years of justice. There's no ceremony to it, no reading of last rites, no priest. Just a man with a piece of parchment yelling your crimes to the crowd like he's calling out bingo numbers. Acts of piracy on the open seas, theft of crown property, destruction of naval equipment, unlicensed ownership of a parrot. That last one actually gets a laugh from the crowd. You look around for Stabsy, but he's not here. Rumour has it he escaped during the raid and now lives in the governor's garden shouting obscenities at anyone who walks by. Fitting. Historically, pirate executions were public spectacles, designed not just to punish, but to deter. The goal wasn't justice, it was fear. They'd string up a pirate, hang him until dead, then dip the body in tar and suspend it in an iron cage at the harbour's edge so sailors, merchants and wide-eyed children could pass by and think, "Not for me, thanks." Some pirates were even left hanging for weeks, their corpses swaying in the breeze like ghastly wind chimes. You try not to think about that. Try to breathe. 1, 2, 3. You go over every possible scenario in your head. Maybe the rope breaks. Maybe a pardon arrives. Maybe the governor changes his mind. Maybe dash dash. A drum roll cuts through the noise, loud, sharp. The executioner steps forward, face hidden beneath a burlap hood, axe hanging from his belt. Not that he needs it. You hear the magistrate say, "Any final words?" and the crowd goes quiet. For the first time all morning no one's chewing, no one's gossiping. Even the birds shut up. The man to your left says something, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse, you can't tell. Gristle clears his throat and yells, "The rum was not my idea." Maggot shouts, "Tell the monkey I forgive him." You just breathe. The floor beneath your feet shifts slightly, testing the trapdoor. You brace yourself. The sky above is pale blue, the kind of sky that belongs to normal days. Wash days, market days, not hanging days. You imagine being anywhere else, even back on the ship covered in grime and wounds with nothing but salted pork and belly rum to look forward to. You take that over this plank beneath your boots. But here you are. The magistrate nods. The drums stop. You close your eyes. Nothing happens. You blink. The crowd murmurs. Confused whispers ripple outward. Then, chaos. A shout from the far end of the square. People part. A horse clatters across the cobblestones. Dust flies. Someone's waving a document. Not a pardon. Orders. It's the governor's assistant. He's breathless, sweating through his coat. "Stay the hangings," he yells. "Hold the executions." There's been a delay. Gristle cackles, Peg-Eye-Lou faints. You just stare. Turns out the governor wants to make a spectacle. Bigger crowd, more officials, a proper hanging, with music. He's postponed the execution until tomorrow so some dignitary can make a speech first. Apparently your death is now part of the entertainment calendar. So instead of swinging, you get hauled back to the holding pen. A wooden cage behind the gallows that smells like fear and urine. You're tossed inside with the others, wrists still bound, legs still shaking. The crowd slowly disperses, disappointed. Some throw garbage, one kid spits. Quirky detail, some pirates delayed their own execution by demanding to be hanged in the afternoon instead of the morning, arguing that a man deserves one final warm meal. A few even escaped while the hangman was out to lunch. You don't get that lucky. You get stale bread, tepid water, and the luxury of 24 more hours to think about how you're going to die. That night you sleep on straw, body aching, mouth dry. The other prisoners are quiet now, too exhausted to speak. You lie awake, staring through the bars at the gallows, silhouetted in moonlight like a cruel scarecrow. You wonder if anyone's coming for you, if any part of this will be remembered, if your name will end up in a book, or just on a list of some guys who hanged. You think about the sea, the wind, the spray on your face. You think about that first day when everything was still unknown. You didn't know how to fight, how to eat hardtack, how to swab or not or survive a hurricane. You didn't even know how badly it would all stink. Now you know. And tomorrow, it ends. You wake to a boot nudging your ribs. It's not gentle. Nothing on this side of life ever is. The guard, a squat man with a face like a broken anvil, grunts and points with his musket. Up. Visitors. You blink, crusted with sweat and straw. For a brief moment you think maybe it's a dream, or a trick. Visitors? To a condemned pirate. You sit up slowly, every muscle aching from the wooden floor, and shuffle to your feet. Gristle groans from the corner and rolls over, muttering something about clams and revenge. You leave him to it. Outside the cell the daylight hits like a slap. Sharp, glaring, too clean. You squint, then freeze. Standing just beyond the bars, arms crossed and eyes narrowed, is a woman in a worn, sea-stained coat. She looks you over like she's calculating your weight for cannonball replacement. Her hair's tied back with a leather strip, and she wears 2 pistols across her chest like jewellery. "Which one are you?" she asks. You tell her your name, or at least the version that made it onto the arrest log. She frowns. Didn't think so, she mutters, but you'll have to do. She gestures to the guard, who opens the door with a smirk. He's yours, miss. Don't bring him back broken. You're too confused to be scared, which is saying something considering yesterday you had a noose around your neck. The woman leads you around the side of the courthouse, past stacked crates and a rusted cannon, and into a shaded alley. She doesn't speak until you're out of sight. I'm Anne, she says, turning to face you fully. Anne Bonny. Maybe you've heard of me. Maybe you haven't. Either way, we've got 10 minutes and I need a favour. Your brain stutters. Anne Bonny, the Anne Bonny, legendary pirate. Fearsome, fierce, and, according to tavern law, the kind of woman who'd punch a shark just to see if it would flinch. She's supposed to be dead, or captured, or rotting in some other prison. She rolls her eyes at your stunned expression. Yeah, I get that a lot. But no, I'm not here for autographs. I'm here because you're about to hang, and I need someone who doesn't mind dying, or pretending to. She explains quickly, eyes darting to the corners of the alley every few seconds. There's a shipment, a ship, a plan. She's short one body, a switch, a fire, confusion. Your death is a distraction. All you have to do is play along. Make them believe it's you swinging from the rope tomorrow. You don't even hesitate. Of course you'll do it. What's the alternative? Actual death. You nod, and she grins. Good. Knew you had that not completely stupid look. Before you can ask what exactly she means by switch, she disappears around the corner. A few minutes later, you're back in the cell, heart racing, head spinning. Gristle stares at you. That your girlfriend? You say nothing. You just lie back down and try to steady your breath. Historically, women like Anne Bonny and Mary Read defied every expectation of their time. They dressed like men, fought like demons, and earned the respect and fear of pirate crews across the Caribbean. They were just as ruthless, just as skilled, and somehow even more dangerous because nobody saw them coming. Anne in particular was known for her temper, her cunning, and her complete unwillingness to take orders from anyone who hadn't personally earned her loyalty. But life on a pirate ship wasn't any better for women. If anything, it was worse. Most pirate codes didn't allow women aboard at all. The few that did tolerated them only under certain rules, and always under watch. A woman who wanted to survive among pirates had to be twice as brutal, twice as smart, and twice as fast with a blade. You wonder what Anne saw in you. Desperation, maybe. Or just someone already close enough to the grave that he wouldn't flinch at the risk. That night, there's more noise than usual outside the cell. You hear carts being moved, guards shouting, something large being dragged across the square. Gristle watches the shadows on the wall and says, "They're building bleachers," you groan. "Fantastic." "Yeah," he replies, "bringing out the fancy ropes for this one." You barely sleep. Every hour drips past. You count your breaths, the planks in the ceiling, the sound of your pulse hammering in your ears. At some point, you think you hear the flap of sails far off in the harbour. A ship, maybe. Anne's? You cling to the thought like a drowning man to driftwood. Morning comes fast and cruel. You're dragged from the cell, pushed into a clean shirt. Why they bother, you'll never know. And march back into the square. The gallows look taller today, more polished. There are flags. Someone actually hung flags for your execution. The crowd is twice the size as before. The same vendors, the same wide-eyed children, the same bored magistrate with his parchment. You're led up to the platform. The noose is already there, swaying slightly in the breeze. You see the same hooded hangman, the same guard chewing a toothpick like it's a moral decision. And across the square, in the crowd, you spot her. Anne Bonny, watching from beneath a wide-brimmed hat, arms folded, waiting. The magistrate begins his speech. You hear none of it. Your pulse drowns it all out. The crowd jeers. Someone throws a rotten tomato, which misses and hits the magistrate in the knee. Stabsy's voice, clear as a bell, shouts from somewhere. "Hang him slow," the bird laughs. You want to laugh too. Then the hangman moves behind you. The noose slips over your head. The trapdoor creaks. Any minute now, any second. And then, a scream from the docks, a plume of smoke, a boom. The crowd turns, guards run, the executioner hesitates. The trapdoor does not drop. Anne's plan has begun. You don't know if you'll survive, but for the first time in days you think, maybe, you've got a chance. The explosion shatters the morning calm like a gunshot in a chapel. It echoes through the square loud enough to make everyone flinch. Even the hangman drops the lever and stumbles forward. The trapdoor creaks under your feet, but mercifully doesn't drop. You feel the noose tighten for a brief, terrifying second, then loosen again as the executioner regains his footing, swearing into his hood. The crowd erupts, not in cheers but in panic. Children scream, merchants dive behind their carts, hats fly, chickens, because yes, someone brought chickens to the hanging, flap wildly in all directions. You twist your head toward the docks just in time to see a second blast rip through the air, this one accompanied by the unmistakable crack of musket fire and a plume of black smoke rising like a greasy ghost. Anne Bonny vanishes into the chaos. 1 second she's watching you from the crowd, the next she's gone, a shadow slipping between bodies, faster than the guards can react. You'd admire it if you weren't so busy trying not to die. The executioner turns to the magistrate. "Do I still do it?" he asks, genuinely unsure if the hanging is still scheduled mid-riot. "No!" the magistrate yells, backing away from the platform. "Stop everything!" His wig is crooked, and he's got tomato on his robes. It does not add to his authority. Someone in the crowd yells, "Pirates!" which, while accurate, isn't helpful. Everyone starts running in different directions. The square dissolves into a chaotic mess of boots, powder, smoke, and screams. You're still on the platform, still bound, still with a noose around your neck, but now you've got a new problem. Nobody's watching you anymore. Well, almost nobody. A man in a red bandana appears at the base of the platform. He's lean, scarred, and carrying 2 pistols like they're extensions of his hands. "You the one Anne picked?" he shouts up to you. "I think so," he grins. "Good enough." He leaps up the stairs, knocks the hangman out cold with the butt of a pistol, and cuts the rope with 1 clean slash. You stagger forward, legs numb, wrists still bound. He grabs your arm and hauls you down. "Name's Rags," he says. "Now run." And run you do. Historically, jailbreaks during executions weren't common, but they did happen. Pirate crews occasionally staged rescue missions, especially if one of their own was captured in port. They'd time it with a distraction, a fire, a brawl, a dockside skirmish, and use the chaos to break their comrade free. Risky, sure, but pirates weren't exactly known for their love of caution. Rags leads you through the crowd, shoving past screaming townsfolk and confused soldiers. You duck behind a cart of pears, leap over a barrel, and sprint down a narrow alley that smells like fish and regret. You hear gunshots behind you, more shouting. Somewhere a bell is ringing, that can't be good. "This way!" Rags grabs your shoulder and jerks you through a half-open door into a smoke-filled tavern. Inside, a man is lying unconscious on the bar. 2 women are fighting over a boot, and a goat is chewing on the corner of a map. Rags nods toward the back. Out through the kitchen. You don't argue. The kitchen is somehow worse than the alley. Hot, cramped, filled with the smell of rotting onions and overcooked pork. A cook shrieks as you barrel through, dropping a cleaver onto someone's foot. You burst through the back door and out into sunlight just in time to see a wagon, horses hitched and snorting, waiting in the alley. Anne's already sitting in the driver's seat, reins in hand. She tosses you a knife. "Cut your wrists free." We've got 5 minutes before the soldiers regroup. You saw through the rope like your life depends on it. Because, well, it does. The moment your hands are free, you climb into the back of the wagon, hunch down between crates, and hold on. The horses take off like they've been promised freedom and apples. The wagon rattles down the alley, over cobblestones, and straight through the open gate at the far end of town, just before it slams shut behind you. You can still hear the guards shouting, but they're too slow. You're already gone. You don't breathe for the next 10 minutes. When the wagon finally slows near the tree line outside town, Anne jumps down and helps you climb out. Her hand is rough, steady, and not nearly as cold as you expect. "Well," she says, brushing a leaf from your shoulder, "you didn't die. That's a start." You manage a laugh, though it comes out more like a wheeze. "What now?" She pulls a satchel from the wagon, tosses you a canteen, and starts walking toward a path that leads into the hills. "Now?" "We find the ship. You earn your place. You're not just leaving me here?" "You're useful," she says. "At least you might be. Don't prove me wrong." You follow. As the sound of town fades behind you, replaced by rustling leaves and the distant call of birds, you feel something unfamiliar stirring in your chest. Hope. Not much, just a flicker. But it's more than you've felt in weeks. Quirky detail. Anne Bonny and Mary Read were captured but spared the gallows. Temporarily. because they were pregnant. It's one of the few historical cases where "I'm with child" was used as a legitimate stay of execution. Eventually their fates vanished into the fog of time. Some say they escaped, some say they died in prison, others believe they simply changed names and vanished back into the sea. You hike for hours, muscles aching, breath ragged. At one point you stumble and Anne helps you up without comment. No judgment, no lecture, just a nod. As the sun sets, you crest a hill, and there it is, the ship. Smaller than thorns, sleeker, painted black. No flag, no name, just sails waiting to unfurl like the wings of some silent predator. Pirates, yes, but different. Anne looks at you and says, "Welcome to your second chance." You believe her? You never thought you'd step onto another pirate ship willingly. And yet, here you are. Feet touching, deck planks still damp from morning dew, the sails overhead twitching gently in the breeze, the rigging creaking like it's waking from a long nap. The ship is leaner than thorns, better kept, and strangely quiet. No shouting, no stench of rotting meat, no one throwing a bucket at your head. It's so unfamiliar, you almost flinch at the calm. Anne strides ahead like she owns the ocean, and maybe she does, a little. The crew acknowledges her with curt nods and quick, efficient movements. No bowing, no grovelling, just quiet respect and a kind of unspoken readiness. You're not sure if it's discipline or the kind of tension that comes before a mutiny. Either way, no one's trying to stab anyone, so it's already a massive upgrade. You trail behind her, still unsure if you're a prisoner, a crewmate, or just some meat shield with a decent grip. "You'll bunk in the forward hold," she says, not looking back. "You don't steal. You don't touch anyone's blade. You speak when spoken to. And if you smell worse than the bilge, you bathe in the ocean. Understood." You nod, a little too eagerly, and she gives a faint, approving grunt. Below deck, things are tight but organised. Hammocks are spaced in neat rows, gear is stowed away, and someone even scrawled sea shanty lyrics on the walls in reasonably legible handwriting. You drop your satchel, what little Anne gave you, into the corner and try not to look too obviously impressed. This isn't just a pirate crew, this is something else. Over the next few days you learn what that something is. Anne doesn't run a floating madhouse like Captain Thorne. Her ship is disciplined, efficient. The crew actually works, without threats. They clean, they maintain, they train, they sleep in shifts, eat in silence, and don't fling knives for fun during lunch. They call her Captain Bonnie, or just Captain, and they listen. Because when she speaks, they know she means it. Even the food is better. Real bread, slightly stale but edible. Dried fish with herbs, salted meat that doesn't glow in the dark. You get grog, yes, but watered down just enough to take the edge off without making people scream about sea ghosts. At first, you're kept out of most things. You're the new one, the outsider, the man who had a rope around his neck and barely dodged the drop. They don't trust you yet. Fair. You wouldn't trust you either. So you swab, mend, patch sails, clean boots, oil blades, and keep your head down. Then one day Anne hands you a pistol. "You ever fire one of these?" she asks. You nod. You have, technically, once. It jammed. You dropped it. Someone else picked it up and hit you with the butt end, but still, yes, technically. "Then prove it," she says, tossing a rusty coin into the air. You raise the pistol, aim, and miss. Wildly. The coin hits the deck. She picks it up, smirking. "Well, at least you didn't shoot me. That's something." She spends the next hour drilling you, stance, grip, reloading. She's patient but blunt. Every mistake gets called out. Every improvement gets a nod. It's like being slapped and praised at the same time. Somehow you don't mind. Historically, Anne Bonny wasn't just brave. She was lethal. Known for her ferocity in battle, she often disguised herself as a man until things went sideways. At which point she'd make it very clear who she was right before putting a blade in someone's stomach. She and Mary Read were famously the last two pirates fighting on deck during a raid, while the rest of their crew cowered below. If loyalty had a face, it probably looked a lot like Anne, scowling and covered in someone else's blood. Over the next week you start to feel something strange. Purpose. You're given real tasks. Not just punishment work, but meaningful jobs. Helping chart navigation routes, assisting the cook, who isn't named Belly and doesn't believe in garlic-based medical treatments, maintaining weapons. You learn knots you've never seen before, tricks for reading the wind, signals in the clouds. You're not just surviving anymore, you're becoming something. You even get a nickname, Ropes. Not the worst, considering the alternatives. Apparently one guy used to be called Puddle because he cried in the rain. You'll take Ropes, but it's not all discipline and purpose. There's a darker edge too. Anne doesn't take failure lightly. One evening a crewmate falls asleep during night watch. Anne finds him. She doesn't scream. She doesn't make a scene. She simply stares at him until he breaks down apologising. Then she relieves him of his weapon and assigns him latrine duty for a week. Simple, cold, final. Another time, during a storm, a crewmate panics and nearly wrecks the mainsail trying to catch the wind. Anne doesn't hesitate, smacks him with the flat of her blade and tells him, "The next time you forget what I taught you, I'll leave you with the wind." And just like that, the crew adjusts. No one mutters, no one rebels, because they know she's right. Quirky detail. While most pirate crews were male-dominated, there were more female pirates than history admits, many of them operating in disguise, some not bothering. Women who earned respect did so with blood and fire. Anne wasn't alone, she was just the loudest. One night, Anne pulls you aside as the moon hangs low over the waves. The ship drifts silently, sails furled, crew sleeping. She sits on a crate, knife in hand, cleaning her nails. "You were with Thorn," she says. Not a question, a statement. You nod. "I didn't have much of a choice." "None of us did," she says. "He was a monster." You don't disagree. "I knew him once," she continues, "before he lost his mind, before the monkey and the talking onions and the time he tried to marry his own reflection." You blink. He used to be sharp, fearless, but power makes people sick. She looks at you, eyes hard. "Don't chase it. Not if you want to keep your soul." You nod again, slower this time. You understand. Maybe more than you want to. She stands, tucks the knife into her belt and walks away. You sit on the deck long after she's gone, listening to the water slap the hull, feeling the ship sway like it's breathing beneath you. And for the first time in this whole miserable, confusing, godforsaken journey, you feel like maybe, just maybe, you've landed somewhere worth staying. You wake to shouting, but not the panicked, every man for himself kind of shouting you grew used to on Thorn's ship. This is coordinated, purposeful. You roll out of your hammock, boots already half-laced, and scramble topside to find the crew gathering at the rails. The sun's just cresting over the waves, golden and blinding, but everyone's eyes are on the horizon, and there, just visible in the distance, is a black dot cutting across the water. A ship. Anne's voice rings out before you can ask. Spanish galleon, loaded, slow, probably hung over. She points. You catch it by dusk if we hold speed. Get moving. And just like that, you're at full sail. You haven't chased another ship in weeks. Anne's crew isn't the kind to attack anything that moves. They pick targets, specific ones, rich, slow ones. You learn quickly this is part of her success. She doesn't burn through lives for scraps. She waits, strikes hard, leaves no witnesses. You grip the nearest rope and hoist the foresail, muscles burning in a satisfying I might not be dead kind of way. All around you, the crew moves like a single machine. Orders are shouted, sails pulled tight. The hull groans as it cuts through the chop. There's no panic here, just the strange, deadly rhythm of people who know what they're doing. Historically, pirate crews like this one, tight-knit, disciplined, selectively aggressive, were terrifyingly efficient. They didn't always need to fire a shot. The reputation alone was often enough. Word would spread of a captain who never missed, a ship that left no survivors, a flag that meant surrender or sink. And Anne? Anne Bonny had already become myth. Half the ports whispered that she was a ghost. Others said she was still 20 years old and drank gunpowder for breakfast. Neither was true, but if you saw her on your stern, you didn't wait around to check. By midday, the galleon is clearer now. Bigger than yours, heavier, more firepower, sure, but sluggish. You can see the bright yellow of its hull stripes, the flapping royal banners, and the lazy zigzag of a crew clearly not expecting trouble. They think they own the sea. Anne means to correct them. As you close the distance, the energy on board shifts. Calm gives way to tension. Blades are checked, powder horns topped off, pistols loaded and tucked into sashes. Someone hands you a cutlass. It's not fancy, but it's sharp and well balanced. You nod. This time, you won't be hiding in a corner or mopping blood off the deck after the fact. This time, you'll be in it. Rags grins at you as he adjusts his bandolier. Nervous? You shake your head. He laughs. Liar. Anne climbs the quarterdeck, coat flaring behind her. She doesn't yell, she never does, just a few words. No fire unless I say. No screaming. We're faster, smarter, and we're hungrier than they are. A pause. Take what they have. Leave the rest to the sharks. You swallow hard. Then silence. Just the sound of the sails straining, the creak of the ship, and the soft hush of water as you slice closer and closer. You're in range now. The galleon crew finally spots you. They panic. Bells ring. Sails twist. It's too late. Anne raises her hand. Fire! The cannons roar. Your ears go numb. The whole ship jolts back like it's recoiling from its own violence. You hear the crash, wood splintering, men shouting, then return fire that sails high over your heads and crashes harmlessly into the sea. Amateurs. Anne doesn't slow. She shouts for the helmsman to bring you broadside. Another volley, this one aimed low. You see the enemy hull shudder as holes bloom across it like black flowers. Then grappling hooks. They fly through the air with a deadly grace. Ropes pull taut. You're reeling them in. You're boarding. Anne draws both pistols. Let's make it quick. And then chaos. You leap across, boots slamming down onto unfamiliar planks. Smoke, shouting, steel on steel. You duck a blade, lunge forward, parry, slash. It's all movement and instinct. No thought. Just the pulse pounding in your throat and the sting of salt in your eyes. You catch a man charging Anne from behind. You shout. She turns and shoots him without blinking. The shot blows half his hat off and most of his brain. She nods at you. Good eye. Somewhere near the stern, Rags is wrestling a man twice his size into a barrel. Maggots in the rigging above, hurling down nets and screaming obscenities in at least 3 languages. You spot the cook bashing someone with a frying pan. The galleon crew breaks quickly. Most surrender, some jump overboard. A few try to hide below decks, but Anne's crew roots them out like termites. Within 15 minutes the ship is yours. No major damage, no casualties on your side. And in the hold, gold. Chests of it. You help pry one open and your mouth goes dry. Coins, goblets, jewel-studded crucifixes. The kind of haul people kill each other over, or write songs about. You stare at it and realise this isn't myth. This is real, and now it's yours. Back on deck, Anne is overseeing the prisoners. A few are roped together. Most look terrified. One is mouthing a prayer. Anne gives them a choice, join or jump. A few leap into the sea. Most choose to live. She nods, satisfied. Historically, pirate crews offered this exact deal. They weren't recruiters in the traditional sense, but they were practical. Why waste blood if someone might be useful? Of course, joining didn't mean safety. If you betrayed the code, if you stole from your crewmates, if you lied, well, the sea always had room for one more body. That night the celebration is quiet but intense. No wild screaming, no drunken sword fights, just laughter, warm grog, and a sense of triumph so thick it clings to your skin. Anne watches it all from the quarterdeck, sipping something dark from a tin cup. She sees you, lifts her cup, nods once. You nod back. Quirky fringe fact. Pirates had surprisingly democratic rules for dividing plunder. Shares were pre-agreed upon. Captains didn't take 10 times more than everyone else, often just 1.5 shares. It wasn't fairness for morality's sake, it was survival. Greedy captains got replaced. Fast. You sit near the railing, feet dangling above the sea, watching the stars bloom overhead. You're bruised, exhausted, and still slightly deaf in one ear, but alive, and for once, needed. You helped take a ship. You held your ground. And for the first time you don't feel like some fool who got dragged along for the ride. You feel like a pirate. You wake to the smell of salt, gunpowder and sweat. Not the worst combination you've known, not by a long shot. The air is warm, the waves are gentle, and your shoulder doesn't hurt too much when you move it. You sit up slowly, groaning as muscles you didn't know you had remind you that yesterday you helped take a galleon with a cutlass that still smells like someone else's panic. The crew's already up and moving, cleaning, repairing, counting the loot for the 5th time, not because it changed, but because it's unbelievable. The kind of haul you could retire on, or, more realistically, spend in one weekend in Tortuga and wake up broke, bruised and missing a tooth. You climb up to the quarterdeck where Anne stands with a map spread out on a barrel, one boot resting casually on a cannon. She doesn't look up when she speaks. Still alive? Barely. Good. She gestures at the map. Now we get rid of the gold. You blink. Get rid of it? Spend it, she clarifies. Quickly. Before anyone gets greedy. And there it is. The unspoken truth about piracy. Treasure is heavy. Not just the weight of gold, but the trouble it drags behind it. Every coin a crew member pockets is one step closer to envy, paranoia, betrayal. You've seen it before, on Thorne's ship, when someone claimed a pouch of silver and was stabbed during lunch. You felt it creeping around the edges of the crew even now. Sideways glances, tighter grips on coin bags. Anne knows this, of course. She counts on it. That's why she moves fast. You set sail before noon, heading for a small, unmarked island port Anne only refers to as the place. No one else calls it anything. No signs, no flag, just a cove with 5 taverns, 2 brothels, and one man known only as Mop. You're not sure if that's his name or his role, but you don't ask. It takes 2 days to reach the place. 2 days of tension slowly winding tighter. Arguments break out. Accusations float through the air like gnats. Someone claims their coin pouch is lighter than it was. Someone else says they saw fingers going through the storage barrel. Anne keeps quiet but watches everything with the stillness of a storm cloud waiting to break. By the time you drop anchor, everyone's ready to explode. But the moment your boots hit sand, that tension turns into something else. Hunger. The crew scatters into the port like children let out of school. Grog flows, laughter echoes. You don't hear a single pistol shot for at least an hour. It's practically a record. You follow Rags to a dingy tavern lit by whale oil lanterns and filled with people who look like they're all wanted somewhere. You drink slowly, watching the coin fly, onto counters, into hands, under tables, gone as fast as it came, and that's the point. Historically, most pirates didn't hoard wealth. They didn't build castles or invest in real estate. They spent, hard, fast, carelessly. Gold wasn't for saving, it was for proving you existed, because the sea didn't give refunds. One wrong turn, one bad raid, and you were a bloated corpse with pockets full of dreams. So they lived like every day might be the last, because it probably was. You buy yourself a new shirt, leather boots, a knife with a bone handle. Nothing extravagant, but it feels good to not smell like mildew and rope oil for once. You even let a toothless woman braid your hair and tell you your aura smells like almonds. You don't know what that means, but you tip her anyway. Later that night, you find Anne sitting alone on a rock overlooking the cove, a bottle resting between her boots. You approach slowly. She doesn't tell you to leave, so you sit. You ever get tired of it, you ask? She doesn't look at you, just takes a sip. Of the running, the killing, the not knowing what tomorrow looks like. Now she glances at you. Her face is unreadable in the dark, lit only by the moon and the glow of distant torches. The only people who know what tomorrow looks like, she says, are the ones who aren't doing anything. You sit in silence, and then she adds, almost to herself, and if tomorrow kills me, at least it'll have to fight for it. Quirky fringe fact. Many pirate legends are built on lies, half-truths, or outright inventions by later writers. The treasure map trope, total fiction. Eye patches and peg legs, mostly exaggerations. Some real pirates did have injuries, sure, but the myth became larger than the reality. The truth was messier, sadder, funnier, and sometimes more boring. You leave Anne alone and wander back to the dock where a group of crew members are passing around a carved wooden duck someone swears brings good luck. You're almost sure it came from Thorne's ship. Somehow it's still intact, still haunting you. You stare out at the anchored ship, swaying gently under a sky full of stars, and wonder, is this it? Is this your life now? Not just sailing and fighting, but this, the in-between. The drinking, the drifting, the endless cycle of plunder and purge. You're not sure if you like it, but you're not sure if there's anything else. You hear a voice from behind you, Gristle, drunk and leaning against a barrel. You know the secret, he slurs. Everyone lies about pirates, even the pirates. What do you mean? He squints at you like you've asked the dumbest question in the world. We all tell stories, big ones. Say we took on 3 ships alone, or found cursed gold, or kissed a mermaid. All lies, but we tell them so much they feel real, and maybe that's enough. You don't know what to say to that, so you don't. He wanders off to find more rum. You sit there, watching the tide come in, the water lapping against the hulls, the moonlight making everything look softer than it is. Tomorrow you'll sail again. Maybe find another ship, maybe get caught, maybe die. But tonight at least you're rich, you're warm, and nobody's trying to hang you. That's got to count for something. You try to leave in the dead of night, you really do. You wait until the moon is high, the grog has settled in everyone's veins, and the ship rocks in that slow, hypnotic rhythm that almost feels like safety. You stuff your satchel with whatever coins you haven't spent, grab some hardtack from the galley, and slip quietly down the gangplank. You make it 10 steps onto the dock before Clarence the monkey, yes, that monkey, because of course he's here now, drops from a rooftop and lands directly on your back. You let out a strangled yell, which turns into a groan as you try to peel him off your head. He screeches once, and suddenly, Anne's voice cuts through the night like a blade. "Where do you think you're going?" You freeze, the monkey now sitting calmly on your shoulder like this is all part of the plan. Slowly you turn. Anne stands at the base of the ship's ramp, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised, pistol dangling at her hip. Behind her a few crew members emerge, groggy and curious. You sigh. "I wasn't leaving, just taking a walk." "With a bag full of coins and the ship's only decent compass?" You glance at the compass in your hand. "It's a really nice one." She steps closer, face unreadable. "Sit." You do, on the dock. Like a child caught stealing sweets. The monkey hops off your shoulder and curls up beside you, smug as ever. "You tired of it?" Anne asks quietly, sitting beside you. Not mad, just tired. "I don't know," you admit. Maybe I thought I'd try and make it somewhere else. Find land. A name. Something that doesn't involve knives in the dark." She nods. "You wouldn't be the first, or the last." Historically, many pirates tried to escape the life. Some were pardoned, some faked their deaths. A few even married into quiet coastal lives, pretending they'd always been humble fishermen with suspicious tans and too many scars. But most of them, they came back. The sea pulls harder than it should. Anne leans back on her elbows, staring up at the stars. "You think land makes it better?" "I don't know. It just feels like maybe there's something else." "There is," she says. "It's called disappointment. Comes with a front porch and a slow death." You chuckle, but it's hollow. She reaches into her coat, pulls out a small flask and hands it to you. "Drink. You've earned at least one honest conversation." You do. It burns. Probably rum or fire or both. "I was like you once," she says. "Thought I could get away. Live quiet, get married, be someone else." You look at her. "What happened?" She shrugs. "He cheated. I stabbed him. Ran off with his horse. Kept the coat." There's silence between you for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just still. The kind of stillness that only comes after long days and longer truths. Then she says, "You want to go? Go. I won't stop you. But just know, everybody who leaves comes back different. Softer or meaner. Either way, not the same." You nod slowly. "I just didn't want to die on someone else's terms," you whisper. "Not again." And there it is. The real thing. The truth you've been carrying since Thorne's madness, since the gallows, since the first time you picked up a blade and hoped it would be someone else's blood instead of yours. She doesn't speak for a long time, then she stands. "Well," she says, brushing dust from her coat, "if you're going to run, don't do it in your socks. And take Clarence with you. He's driving me mad." The monkey screeches, offended. You laugh. Really laugh. The next morning you don't leave. Not because you're afraid or cornered, but because, surprisingly, you don't want to. Instead, you wake with the rest of the crew. You eat with them, work beside them. You take your turn at the helm under Anne's watchful eye. She says nothing, just lets you steer. A quiet nod when you don't capsize the ship is praise enough. But the strange part, no one mentions your attempted escape. Not even a joke. Not even a raised eyebrow. It's like they knew, expected it, and moved on, as if every one of them had done the same, once, or tried. One night, Rags leans in during dinner and says, "We all run. Just some of us get better at coming back." You don't respond. You're too busy feeling something strange in your chest. It isn't joy, not really, but it's close. Quirky fringe fact. There are recorded cases of pirates escaping trial, living for years as ordinary citizens, only to voluntarily return to the sea. Not for the gold, not even for the fight, just for the life, because on land you're one of many. Out here, you're something else. Later, while watching the stars again, you finally say it out loud. "I don't think I want to be a hero." Anne beside you smirks. You think any of us are. And in that moment you finally understand. You're not here to be good, or famous, or free from pain. You're here because the sea took everything else, and what's left, the bruises, the blood, the dark jokes and endless storms, that's yours. You didn't choose this life, but you're living it now, and you're not done yet. The storm hits hard. No warning, no ominous sky, just wind. Sharp, sudden, like a slap from a god you forgot to worship. One moment, you're half asleep in your hammock, rocking gently with the sway of the calm sea. The next, there's a deafening crack, a lurch, and a bucket of cold water slams into your face as the ship lists violently to starboard. You don't ask questions, you run. Above deck, it's chaos. Rain pelts your skin like gravel. Wind screams like a banshee. The sails whip violently, half unfurled, snapping like they want to break free and fly off without you. Figures dart through the dark, shouting over the storm. You grab hold of the nearest rope and cling to it as water rushes across the deck, carrying away everything that isn't tied down, including, for one horrifying moment, fingers. He vanishes over the rail with a yelp, hand outstretched. You don't see him resurface. Anne's already at the helm, soaked to the bone but locked in place like she's carved from the ship itself. "Reef the mainsail," she bellows, voice cutting through the wind. "Now!" You rush to the lines, slipping on the slick planks, hands blistering as you pull. The sail drops like a guillotine, catching the wind and jerking the mast. Someone screams behind you. Another body lost. You work for hours. Hours without rest. Rain in your eyes, salt on your lips. The world has shrunk to ropes and wind and the sound of the sea trying to kill you in increasingly creative ways. You've never been more exhausted, or more awake, or more certain that you're not in fact cut out for this. Historically, storms were one of the greatest threats to pirates. Not naval battles, not mutinies, not disease. The sea itself was the most consistent killer. A single mistake, misjudged wind, rotten rigging, a fire below deck could send an entire crew to the bottom. Ships disappeared regularly. No wreckage, no survivors. Just stories whispered in coastal taverns about what might have happened. Your hands are bleeding, you've lost feeling in your fingers. The ship groans beneath you like it's about to break in half. The mainmast shudders violently, and for a moment you think it's going to crack. You brace for the sound, but it holds. Somehow Anne keeps the ship steady, guiding her through the storm like a blindfolded thief threading a needle during an earthquake. Her knuckles are white on the wheel. Her coat is torn. Her face is calm. And you realize something, even now, soaked and shivering and barely alive. She's not afraid, not of the sea, not of dying, not of anything. Eventually, finally, the wind begins to fade. The rain slows. The waves settle from fury to agitation. The world stops spinning sideways. The ship limps forward, bruised but floating. And then silence. You collapse on the deck, cheek pressed to the wet wood. You might be crying, or laughing, or both. You can't tell. Anne appears above you, hair plastered to her face, one hand still on the wheel. She says nothing, just gives you a slow, grim nod like, "Well, you didn't die. That's something." You manage a thumbs up. The next day the sun rises like nothing happened. The sea is calm, birds circle. The ship creaks but still floats. It's like the storm was a fever dream, except for the missing crew, the shattered masthead, and the smell of desperation still hanging in the air. You help with repairs, fingers raw and splintered. You don't complain. None of you do. There's a silence among the crew now. Not fear, not sadness, but something else. A grim, mutual understanding. You survived. Some didn't. That's the deal. No tears, no graves. Just keep moving. You find what's left of Finger's satchel wedged under a barrel. Inside is a small journal. He drew crude sketches of each crew member. Yours shows you with exaggerated eyebrows and holding a giant spoon for some reason. You tear the page out and tuck it into your coat. You bury the satchel at sea. That night there's no celebration. Just silence. No one sings. No one drinks. Everyone just sits, watches the horizon, waits. Anne walks among the crew saying nothing. She nods to those she passes. A hand on a shoulder here, a quiet look there. Not a captain demanding loyalty. Just a woman who made it through another storm with fewer friends than she started with. You wonder how many more she can take. How many more you can. Quirky fringe fact. Some sailors believed in sea monsters not because they were fools, but because it was easier to imagine a giant squid pulling ships under. than to accept that the ocean itself, cold, uncaring, infinite, was the real beast. Fear, after all, needs a face. Later, as the stars return and the ship drifts quietly onward, you find yourself staring at the water. You think about everything it's taken from you. Your old life, your safety, your illusions, but also what it's given. Purpose, clarity, a second chance that shouldn't have been possible. You think of Thorn, gone, of the gallows, of Anne, of the time you tried to run, of Clarence the monkey, now inexplicably asleep on your feet. You think, maybe you were meant to sink, and maybe this ship, this crew, this broken, battered, floating miracle is what rose in your place. You hear a voice beside you, Rags. Storm like that takes something out of you, he says. Yeah, you reply, and leaves something else. He nods. Better hope you like what it leaves. The wind picks up slightly, soft and steady. The sails fill, the ship glides forward. You don't know what tomorrow brings. A battle, a hangman's rope, another storm. But tonight you're here, alive, changed, still afloat. And if the sea wants to try again, well, it can damn well try. The sea is calm tonight. Not the kind of calm that comes before the storm or the kind that makes your stomach twist with dread. This is something quieter, more certain, a hush rather than a silence, a kind of stillness that feels earned, deserved even, though you still don't believe you deserve much. You lie on the deck alone, back against warm wood, eyes on the stars as they slowly tilt with the rhythm of the waves. Above you, the sails whisper, the ropes creak, the world moves on. It's strange how everything can change, and yet this still feels the same. The water, the wind, the ghostly sound of the sea brushing against the hull like a lullaby. But you're not the same, not even close. You remember your first day aboard a pirate ship, back when you had no idea which way was aft or whether a dagger went in the boot or the belt. You've been seasick, stabbed, half-starved, tied up, almost executed and very nearly eaten by a shark. And somehow, after all that, you're still here. Alive. Wiser. Saltier, certainly. You'll never be normal again. You know that now. And maybe that's not so bad. Somewhere near the bow, Rags is humming off key. Clarence the monkey snores softly in a hammock he claimed 3 days ago and refuses to leave. You hear Anne's footsteps pass once, slow, steady, and then fade again. No words, no orders, just presence. You let your eyes close, let the warmth of the deck seep into your bones, let the sea rock you like a cradle. You've done your part, you've earned your breath. You don't know what adventure waits around the bend, but that's not tonight's concern. Tonight you rest. And if the wind changes tomorrow, if the cannons roar and the sails snap and fate throws another mess in your face, well, you're a pirate now, you'll handle it.